Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo City Council meeting. It is Monday, October 5th. It is approximately 6:30 p.m. We have 4 members of council present at this time. Councilman Schenk is running a few minutes late. Hopefully he'll make it in time and catch up. If everybody can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Colbert, why don't you lead us in it tonight?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Chief White, would you mind leading us in the invocation, please?
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very good. Tonight, Council, we would like to dedicate this prayer and this meeting to the fallen firefighters. This is, of course, National Fire Prevention Week, but it's a time we also identify each year annually and recognize those who gave their life in active service. And we're remembering today, over this past weekend, the memorial service at United States Fire Administration in Maryland, which 87 families were honored in the loss of 87 firefighters in 2014. So we'll dedicate this tonight. So if you'd like to join me in a word of prayer, please do so at this time. Father God, we're just blessed to stand in a country that enjoys these type of freedoms. We're blessed by those who wish to serve, elected officials and all of our government employees, and we're so grateful for this town that we live in. And today we're humbled and stand before you and just ask, Lord, that you would comfort all the families, friends, and co-workers of those 87 firefighters that sacrificed their life in 2014. Lord, give them grace, give them comfort, give them all that only you can provide. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. Our first order of business is a ceremonial item, and it's actually the Fire Prevention Week proclamation. Mr. Cobb, why don't I turn it over to you real quick, just a brief introduction, and then I'll read it. Or maybe Chief White has something.
I was going to say,
Chief White, do you have anything on the proclamation that I'm about to read? It's for Fire Prevention Safety Week, I believe. Will do, Chief. All righty. The proclamation for Fire Prevention Safety Week reads, whereas National Fire Prevention Week was established in 1920 in recognition of the need for fire safety awareness as a result of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, resulting in the destruction of 17,000 structures, 250 fatalities, leaving 100,000 people homeless. And whereas the City of Oviedo Fire Rescue Department aggressively strives to provide community fire and life safety education and stands in support of the annual National Fire Protection Association Fire Prevention Week, promoting this year's theme, Hear the Beat, Where You Sleep. I think it's right on the wall over there for everyone. Whereas the National Fire Protection Association reports the risk of dying in home fires is cut in half when a home has working smoke alarms, and whereas lives and property may be saved by creating and practicing a home fire escape plan, maintaining smoke detectors on each floor of the home and inside bedrooms, maintaining fire extinguishers in the kitchen and garage, and inspecting the home once a year for fire hazards. Now, therefore, I, Dominic Presempierre, Mayor of the City of Oviedo, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 5th through October 10th, 2015, as National Fire Prevention Week in the City of Oviedo, Florida. And I will set my hand on that proclamation at the end of this meeting. And, Chief, do you want to add anything to it for us? No, we appreciate everything that your department, all public safety, obviously, but since it's National Fire Prevention Week, we certainly will recognize what the fire department does to keep the citizens of the City of Oviedo and surrounding communities safe. So, thank you, Chief. Moving along, we're up to item number 2 on the agenda, and that is the approval of the minutes for the September 21st, 2015 regular session and our September 24th, 2015 work session. I'd like to entertain a motion to do so.
So moved. Second.
We have motion second. Is there any discussion? No? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. A motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda. It is the public comment portion of our meeting. I do have some written requests on an item, so hold those comments for later. Is there anybody in the audience, though, who would like to address council on anything not on the agenda? Please do so at this time. Hearing none, I will close public comments and move on to the consent agenda. That is items 4 through 11. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Councilman Schenk?
Nothing, sir.
Deputy Mayor?
No.
Councilman Britton?
Good.
Councilman Henkin? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to adopt the consent agenda as presented. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, we're up to item number 12. It is our first public hearing this evening. Bear with me a moment. Let me just catch up on the computer. Mr. Colbert, would you please read ordinance number 1628 by title only for us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is entitled An Ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, relating to the use or smoking of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes at city parks and all city facilities and properties, providing for amendment to Section 3325G2 City Code, providing for prohibitions, providing for legislative findings, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for a savings provision, providing for penalties and enforcement, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 1628 accomplishes the following. It adds language to the Code of Ordinances prohibiting and making unlawful the smoking or holding of tobacco products, including the use of e-cigarettes and the use or consumption of tobacco products in or upon parks, properties, facilities under the control and management of the city. It adds language to the Code of Ordinances prohibiting and making unlawful for any person to smoke or carry a lighted cigar, cigarette, cigarillo, or pipe, or use any sparks, flame, match, or fire-producing device normally used in tobacco smoking, or to use or continue tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, in any park, property, or facility that is owned or under the control of the city. It adds language regarding the posting of signage that says smoking prohibited by law. It also amends Section 33-25G2 of the Code of Ordinances to accomplish the same prohibitions. It's recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 1628.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. At this time, as Mr. Cobb did mention, this is a public hearing. I do have a few written requests. When you come up to the podium, you need to clearly state your name and full address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. First written request comes from Kevin Skipper.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Kevin Skipper. My address is 7140 Maysville Court, West of Chapel, Florida. And I am here tonight to speak in opposition of Ordinance 1628 relating to the use of tobacco products in city parks, including electronic cigarettes. Are we time limited on this?
3 minutes.
Okay. I am the president of VISTA, which is a vaping industry alliance in the state of Florida with a goal of promoting tobacco harm reduction throughout the state and for tobacco users to have a viable alternative to switch over to something that's hopefully not going to be lethal to them or their family or friends at some point in the future. I also own Vaping Convention Circuit, which is a convention organizer, and we travel around the country organizing events to hopefully draw in smokers and present to them vaping as a viable alternative to smoking combustible tobacco products, which are known to be lethal. Vaping offered me the only viable alternative to quit a 15-year, 1.5-pack-a-day habit of combustible tobacco cigarettes. I'm here to speak tonight and hopefully encourage you to change or amend the language to remove the including electronic cigarettes portion of it. I basically agree with everything else that you have in the ordinance. I think that secondhand smoke, as we all know, is detrimental to everyone around you, but there is evidence to prove that passive vapor, as it's known, which is the vapor emitted from a from an electronic cigarette, is innocuous to bystanders and causes no harm. There's nothing in it more harmful than city air, essentially. And I have a study from Drexel University, Dr. Igor Burstin, that I can provide to the clerk for you guys to have a look at, which basically concludes that exposure of bystanders are likely to be orders of magnitude less and thus pose no apparent concern. Elected officials have a duty to their constituents to make informed decisions about laws being passed. There are no federal government or state laws at the moment that define electronic cigarettes as tobacco products. So I think maybe if Oviedo would take a wait-and-see approach on this, and maybe pass the smoking ordinance part of it, but wait and see to see what the federal government of the state of Florida does over the coming months, then that would be probably a wise decision on your part. If it looks like a cigarette, it should be treated like one, does not make for sound policy. Scientific evidence clearly indicates that passive vapor is not harmful to bystanders. Public Health England, which is a conglomerate in England, within the last month released a report that said that vaping is at least 95% safer than smoking combustible tobacco cigarettes. Other governmental bodies are going to look towards Oviedo for guidance, and if you guys pass something like this tonight, and our biggest concern is that you're equating it to a tobacco product, then they're going to look at you and say, look what Oviedo did. We're going to try to do the same thing. And that's going to put a negative spin on it for smokers who are trying to, at some point in the future, maybe trying to find a viable alternative to smoking cigarettes that are going to kill them, for sure. And there's clearly, as I've said, evidence that this is a much less harmful alternative to smoking combustible tobacco. And it looks like I'm out of time. Can I have just a few more seconds?
You can finish.
Okay. Electronic cigarettes are not tobacco products, and we do not want them commingled in laws. Perception has never taken one human life, but smoking kills thousands of people every day. Where there is vapor, there is not smoke. A vote for this ordinance will reinforce the notion that e-cigs are tobacco products. I agree with the ordinance as it relates to smoking cigarettes. I respectfully encourage each of you to vote no with the current language or propose an amendment to remove all language regarding electronic cigarettes prior to voting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next written request I have comes from Daniel Filipowski. I think I got that wrong, but I tried.
Filipkowski, sir, that's fine.
I just need your full name and address for the record, please.
My name is Daniel John Filipkowski. I live at 1976 Barrack Way, Castleberry, Florida, area code 32707.
Thank you.
Yes, tonight I'm here in reference to ordinance number 1628. Today we are here to discuss the ordinance relating to the use of smoking or tobacco products at city parks and all city facilities. I want to start with a memorandum that was published by the City of Oviedo regarding the 2005 California Air Resource Broach research identifying secondhand smoke as toxic air contaminant. I also want to refer to the other example they brought into the paper that was put out, to the 2007 Stanford University report that found secondhand smoke exposure levels to be significantly higher near an active smoker. Both of these findings had nothing to do with e-cigarettes. It was only cigarettes in general. So I just want to start with that. Liquid ingredients are by no means any secrets to anybody. Majority of your companies actually post the ingredients on the labels themselves, including the company I work for. So there are no secrets to the general public of anybody who's buying it or selling it. One of the ingredients is vegetable glycerin. It is an organic product. It comes from soy. It's also used in very many cosmetics and body care products. It is clear, colorless, odorless, and incredibly sweet tasting. It is almost like a thick syrup. And actually, you guys use it every day. Anytime you're using toothpaste or a body soap or any cosmetics, anybody who wears makeup, herbal remedies, or any pharmaceuticals, I'm sure a lot of us take any proteins or anything like that. It's actually found in every single one of those products. So you ingest it every single day of your life. Propylene glycol is the second main ingredient in e-liquid, which is actually used in Canada for a lot of actually health benefits. They use it for injected, applied topically, and inhaled for a lot of many things. It's also found in their pharmaceuticals and makeup products, and actually it's the main ingredient for asthma inhalers. I also want to go back to a study that was done in California, which went over the emissions that were put out by the passive vaping. magnesium was actually lower than natural breath of a human being. The aluminum, that your actual breath that was put out was actually 75% of the findings found that your breath was putting out more aluminum than what the vapor was producing. The sulfur that was actually found in the vapor, it was actually 35% of it was through the human breath. Potassium, 75% was found to be human breath, and iron, 95% of it was found to be human breath. There have been no findings that secondhand vaping can cause any major side effects to the human body over a prolonged period of time, because actually 95% of the emission put out from e-liquid is already in the air that we breathe. In conclusion, none of the air we breathe is pure. It doesn't mean that it's safe to breathe in. This research only shows that many of the constitutions, or most of the constituents of e-cig vapor, are also found in both vapor-free indoor and outdoor air. There's nothing to be alarmed at. What it does suggest, however, is that argument for banning e-cig use on basic vapor contains dangerous chemicals and metals is no longer good or valid. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next written request that we have is from Matthew Williams.
Hi, Matthew Williams, current address 10275 Lennox Street in Claremont. Until this past March, though, I actually lived over here in Alafaya Woods and voted for a couple of you guys that are up there, so you're welcome. Thank you for letting us come speak on this issue. It's an important issue. I don't think you'll find a single person in this room that doesn't agree that smoking causes death, causes disease, to not only the person who is partaking of cigarettes, but the people that are around them. No one here disagrees with the elimination of smoking in public areas under city control. The issue, I think, most everyone in the room will have with this is the inclusion of vapor products. There is currently no science that shows any harm to the user, to the bystander, to the people walking through a room where someone has been using an electronic cigarette or another vaping product. There's plenty of science that is currently available that shows the exact opposite, that there is no discernible risk to bystanders, that there is no cause for alarm to the people that are actually picking up this product. There was a study done by the British Health Department that was released 2 months ago that actually showed that vaping is 95%, or their words were at least 95% safer than cigarette smoking, and that anyone who chooses to switch from smoking to vaping will significantly change their lives, being able to get rid of this very toxic habit for something that is by no means safe. Nothing in the world is ever safe. Nothing is 100%, but orders of magnitude safer than cigarette smoking. There was a study released by a Greek cardiologist named Dr. Konstantinos Farsalinos. And let me tell you, if you're not Greek, you're practicing that name quite a bit when you're trying to say it. Compared volatile organic compounds released in normal exhaled breath, in normal room ambient air, in exhaled vapor, and in cigarettes. The amount of volatile organic compounds exhaled by the user of a vapor product was measured actually less than normal breath and less than room air. Cigarette smoking was 8 times higher. So there's no doubt that removing cigarette smoking from these areas is definitely sound public policy. Removing vapor products from these are not. The biggest problem with these kinds of ordinances are that it sends a signal to current smokers that you are endorsing vapor products as being just as dangerous as cigarette smoking. And maybe they won't pick it up. And the second thing it does is it sends current vapor users back to the smoking areas where they're trying to get away from. You're now relegating those people who have made a choice to get rid of a product that is killing them in favor of a product that, while not 100% safe, is way better than what they were doing before. And you're putting them right back into that secondhand smoke again. And in most cases, those people would say, well, if I'm going to be standing next to the smoke, I may as well be smoking. So what we would urge you to do is to either remove the electronic cigarette language from the ordinance and pass it as just a straight cigarette smoking tobacco bill. Or, at the very least, shelve this ordinance, speak with some of us in the community, in the vaping community, gather more information on the studies that are out there, gather more knowledge, and then make a more informed decision at a later date. Anyway, I thank you for your time.
Next written request I have is Sean O'Halloran. Sean, again, full name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sean O'Halloran. I live at 1954 Clover Lawn Road in Orlando, Florida. I thank you for having me here tonight. I just really think this is a bigger decision than you've realized. What you're about to make a decision on could potentially impact hundreds, thousands, even millions of lives in the future. I've seen firsthand for the last 2 years how much the e-cigarette industry has impacted the lives of smokers who were ill, who were getting ill, told by doctors that they should vape to extend their life and make their lives happier. So when you make the decision that you're going to make this evening, all I ask is that you consider the impact that it's going to have in the future. To put smokers and vapor users in the same category, in my opinion, is a mistake. It will, in effect, as was stated prior, force people who have chosen to get away from a dangerous addiction back into those same areas, and perhaps some will really relapse, perhaps some will be affected by secondhand smoke, which is also known to be a danger. I fully agree that smoking should be eliminated altogether, everywhere. I think e-cigarettes are a path towards that, and I just ask that you consider that in your decision here tonight so that people in the future can still have that decision and make a well-informed decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last written request I have is from Adam Avalon. Again, Adam, full name and address for the record.
My full name is Adam John Avalon, or Avalon. I live at 1165 Lake Rogers Circle, Toledo, Florida, 32765. I'm here to go against order number 1628. I'm very much like my father. At a young age, I had started to smoke. After smoking for a few years, I noticed that my health was severely starting to decline. I was not able to even walk upstairs a year after joining a varsity soccer team without feeling winded. I had started vaping. About a year after I had started vaping, I decided to take a jog. I noticed that I was able to run 2 miles and only feel the same that I did after 3 years of smoking cigarettes walking upstairs. Electronic cigarettes were made as a healthier alternative to smoking. Further restricting electronic cigarettes as they already are is essentially saying that healthier alternatives are not accepted publicly, are going to the extent that you are preferring individuals who are trying to make a healthier life choice. We restrict it to individuals who are choosing to smoke. Vaping and smoking cigarettes are two different worlds. Putting them both together and both put individuals who are trying to quit and trying to make a healthier alternative in danger to secondhand smoke. My father, at the age of 56, diagnosed on my birthday with diabetes. He had a blood sugar of 500. He almost lost his life that night. For about 25 years, my father had smoked cigarettes and cigars. I had showed my dad vaping. For the first time in about 6 years, my dad can work out. My dad can go for a walk. I can enjoy going for a walk with my dog and my dad because he has tried to make a healthier life choice. He doesn't want to smoke. He doesn't need to smoke because he's found an alternative that helps promote his health and helps him recover from the years that he has chosen to smoke. In conclusion, essentially, I agree with your order, but to the extent I feel that electronic cigarettes are in no way close to actual cigarettes. And I personally wish that the term electronic cigarettes would be taken away in this order. Thank you very much.
That is the end of the written requests. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to address council at this time? Come on up. Name and address for the record, but you know how it goes.
Evening, folks. My name is Steve Edmonds. I live at 1022 Vanessa Drive, Oviedo, Florida, 32765. I know most of you all. I've worked with you all for several years over the last too long. Over a decade. Anyway, long time. When I was sitting on the diocese with some of you all as an LPA member, we used to take breaks. I'd have to go smoke a cigarette. And I was very much addicted to smoking cigarettes. I smoked for 26 years. Worst thing I ever did in my life. One of the things when I was trying to quit that would help me from falling back to using regular nicotine and tobacco was an electronic cigarette. It is very important for you all to consider the differences, as you've heard throughout this evening, about the consequences that you're going to create if you do lump all tobacco products into this ordinance. There are several people I know in this city that use their alternative smoking as opposed to smoking cigarettes, and would have a very difficult time if they were relegated to go back to smoking areas or not smoking in public at all. On top of that, I have libertarian principles, and I have an idea that most people should be able to figure out what they should do for themselves, so long as they're not hurting anybody else. I understand the argument of secondhand cigarette smoking. It harms somebody else. This particular ordinance would harm the people that are trying to not harm other people. And it should be something that you should be aware of. And I urge you very much, if you're going to move forward with this ordinance, to please make an amendment to exclude electronic cigarettes or vaping. And as somebody else suggested, you always have the option of tabling and considering further. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council? Seeing and hearing none, I am closing the public comment portion of this hearing and moving on to the pleasure of council. Just need a motion for discussion.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number,
1628.
1628.
I'll second it.
A motion is second. Councilman Schenk, you have the floor.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think anybody's trying to, lump it together. It is put together in the ordinance because, like I said, they're both giving off something. I'm going to say that. Whether it's vapor that contains some VOCs, some other chemicals, or not. I did do some reading and have looked at, there's the Drexel study, there's other studies that say it's too early to tell exactly, but there's definitely contaminants that are coming out. And what the long-term effects of those VOCs and contaminants are up there in the air. Just as cigarette smoking was years ago. We don't understand all of it yet. As far as, we're not telling anybody, don't vape. We're saying in parks, in the buildings, that it's just not going to be acceptable. I don't think that sets as everybody sat here and talked, I came from probably at least 65 cigarettes were smoked in my house when I grew up. I had 3 smokers, Benson and Hedges, Marlboro, 20 packs a day, 3 users that were constantly puffing. And we've all seen the effects and the ads that are very, that have done their job in Florida. But again, I think there's a difference in terms of the complete knowledge of what vaping does, but there is something in there. There's VOCs, there's other things that have been shown up coming out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with limiting that indoors and in our parks. I think that's okay to do.
Thank you. Councilman Britton, you have the floor.
I guess I'll start with Mr. Cobb. The question I have is what is the rationale for including the electronic cigarettes in the ordinance? Was it for health insurance reasons, or is there some other reason?
I think that one of the things, I also like to have Mr. Boulware come up. He was the champion of this ordinance, and also Chief Chudnow is also a good resource as well when it comes to the e-cigs. We looked at how it was an effect to other people, and the e-cigarettes, though they don't have the same contaminants as the tobacco and normal cigarettes, they do have some. And so we looked at it from the standpoint of let's go ahead and control or put in regulations that regulate them now so that we could cast a wider net and make it a more pleasant atmosphere, a more healthier atmosphere in our parks. We understood that the people are going to these alternatives to try to break away from tobacco use. We understood that. But we also looked at the people who are using our parks. When you think about the majority of our parks are used by parents and young children, that we wanted to create an environment, a clean environment within our park system. And so we looked at all the different ramifications of having both tobacco products and e-cigarettes in our parks, and we just felt that to create the healthy environment within our parks that we needed to control both.
When we talk about parks, it's easy to define Riverside Park. It's pretty well, the boundary is pretty well established. But what about Oviedo on the park? If someone wanted to step aside and step out on the sidewalk on Oviedo Way or Microberta Way or something, would that be allowable because it's not in the park? Or is this
that would be within public right-of-way.
So it's on all public property in the city is what we're going to pass an ordinance on?
We're talking about city facilities and buildings as well as city parks.
So all city sidewalks are included?
Well, city sidewalks are considered public right-of-way.
Okay. So what about a sidewalk on Microberta Way? Is that a city sidewalk or is that a park sidewalk?
That would be a city public right-of-way if it's dedicated by the developer.
Okay. So the answer is yes or no. Someone could step aside and smoke an e-cigarette out there away from the park?
This ordinance would not prohibit it.
Okay. So there is an alternative. If there's an event going on in the park, they could take a few steps outside the park and enjoy their e-cigarette if they wanted to.
It's possible.
Right. Okay. Chief, how are you going to enforce this? And I guess it's easy with the tobacco products, but how would you enforce it for the e-cigarettes?
In looking at the ordinance, it would be enforced as any other ordinance. If an officer observes somebody smoking an e-cigarette inside of the park or inside a city facility, we would do a warning the first time, and it would be an administrative citation, which is a $50 citation for the first offense.
Okay. So I guess you're going to have a learning curve on what I just talked about, what that boundary is.
That's correct.
Okay.
We always try to give a learning curve first.
Okay, good. I think that's all I have right now, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Who wants to go next?
Oh,
Deputy Mayor?
yeah, we'll go. First of all, I would just like to applaud all of you that are trying to break away from cigarette smoking and using the electronic cigarette. I know how difficult that must be. My father smoked for most of his life, started at 13 years old, and I watched him die a very slow, painful death of emphysema. So anyone who wants to quit, I applaud you. You're doing a wonderful thing for yourself and your family. When this was put on the agenda, I decided to do some research myself and read about it and talk to people who were switching. And I really did think to myself, this could be the answer for a lot of smokers to break away from that terrible habit. So I don't want you to think that I am looking down at anybody or saying it's wrong. I think it is a good thing. My concern is are the children in the parks. We have parks that are probably mostly children. And children look at that, and they're going to see you smoking an electronic cigarette, and children, what do? They mimic. They like to imitate and do what the adults do. They want to feel grown up. So that is kind of putting that in their mind, because they are very impressionable, and they will think, gee, that looks like fun, just like they do now. It's just like showing them, if they see other kids doing things and they want to do it, and then you have peer pressure. So that is my concern, is having a good example for our children, and because they are the future, they're our future, and we want to protect them as much as we can. I know there are a lot of things that we can't protect them from, but just that they can see it and know what it is. Their children, they're not going to go for an e-cigarette. They're going to go more for the cigarettes that they can get in a store and move on from there. I know that the e-cigarettes are not dangerous, or not as dangerous as the cigarettes, not probably in a fraction of the danger, and that there's really no risk to others, basically from what they know now. And as Councilman Schenck said, they're not sure. It's not done researching. So I just want to say I do understand how you feel, but I think there are a lot of other places. I mean, we don't allow drinking in our parks. We don't allow several things in our parks, and our main effort is to protect the children. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Henkin?
Well, I would echo a lot of what I heard from some of my colleagues up here, and I would also speak to what Deputy Mayor talked about, to anybody battling addiction of any kind, and cigarettes are so insidious. They've robbed us all of our health. They've taken loved ones from us. So for all of you that have quit, God bless you, and that you're healthy, especially the young man who is here in Oviedo, who's taking walks with his dad and his dog now when he couldn't do that. So that's a good thing. This is what I wrestle with. I wrestle with facts. Okay, I'm not a smoker, but I know lots of people who smoke, and you try not to take things away. And Steve spoke about regulating things. I'm glad you all agree. You've made part of this very easy. That you all agree that the cigarette smoking itself is bad, and let's get that out. So that's a good thing. But when I read, and I'll just take just something I just glanced at, the American Lung Association, and this comes right from their website, and I'll read you verbatim what they did. And this is why I'm having a little issue with the vaping. It says, why e-cigarettes do not produce smoke, they do expose others to secondhand emissions. Little is known about these emissions or the potential harm they may cause. 2 initial studies have found formaldehyde, benzene, and other tobacco-specific items coming from these secondhand emissions. And then other studies have shown that chemicals exhaled by users of these also have formaldehyde and other toxins. And it says there is no evidence that shows that they're safe for non-users to inhale. So everything you guys said up here made perfect sense to me. But that makes perfect sense to me too. So what we wrestle with, is science here. So for me, I'm going to err on the side of caution with this when I vote. And if it's proven that something is different, we could always revisit it. But everything that I've read, we still don't know a lot about it. Certainly much better than smoking a Chesterfield King like my dad smoked for 50 years with no filters on him. I mean, 100% better. But we still don't know what's going on with it. So that's what I'm wrestling with at the moment. But, again, I applaud you all for quitting, and this is a good alternative for you to quit. I'd rather see you not have these either, because we really don't know what's in them. I heard some very good facts here tonight you all brought up here, but when I had a major organization like that who's done their own studies, and they believe there is, when you're in our position, it's kind of hard. So you err on the side of caution, and if you're shown you're wrong, then you fix it. That's how I look at it. But that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, sitting here going last and listening to everybody, I do agree with everything that I've heard this evening from both sides. However, this is in public parks and in city buildings. We are in no way restricting your personal liberties, your personal freedoms to do as you wish in your own home, on a sidewalk, walking your dog, or anywhere else. We're just trying to control what happens to us when folks are sitting in parks, vaping, smoking, or doing whatever else, and then all the phone calls come into us, so they go into Parks and Rec, and then we end up having to handle that. It's really more about the smoke. I mean, we can argue the science, because for every report that you'll bring up, I mean, I did the same thing that Councilman did. I mean, I've got 2 other reports here I can read that said basically about the same thing his said. But then I found others that said what you said. So nobody knows. But it's really, truly about the air. It's about people sitting down, trying to enjoy a park, enjoy their kids at the splash pad, enjoy their kids at Friendship Park. That's one of the big ones that we get a lot of complaints on. And folks sitting there with total disregard for other people's rights to enjoy the park with fresh air. You know, I'm terribly sorry that folks have addictions. Both my parents smoked. My mother's dealing with COPD from it for all these years. My father did quit, and many years ago. But that's the issue that is dealt with. I mean, before the meeting, a bunch of you were out there on the patio out front, and I could see you from in here, you know, puffing up like chimneys under there. You know, maybe to prove your point for the cameras. I don't know what the reason was, but I was sitting right here watching it. Now imagine if you're in the park, sitting watching a concert on our lawn, and you've got that person in front of you doing that. Total disregard. And unfortunately, those of you who would get up and maybe walk to the back or walk out onto the other sidewalk on the other side of the park, as Councilman Britton mentioned, the few of you who would do that, those who don't, ruin it for y'all. And we're the ones who end up with the emails. We're the ones who end up having to clean everything up out in the park, or not us personally. So while this may not seem perfect, and while it may be precedent-setting, well, we'll set the precedent, and if something changes, we can always change an ordinance. But that's all I have to add to that, because it's all kind of been said. Does anybody else on the dais have anything else on this for the good of the order before I call the question?
Nope.
Nope. Motion on the table is to adopt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening on Ordinance 1628. Moving along, we're up to item number 13, ordinance number 1630. Ordinance number 1630 is amendments to the Fire Prevention and Protection Code of Ordinance. Mr. Colbert, could you read that by title only, please?
Yes, sir. This ordinance is entitled An Ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, substantially revising and amending Chapter 26 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oviedo regarding the adoption of the Florida Fire Prevention Code and the related codes and manuals relating to fire safety and life safety, providing for legislative findings and intent, providing for the regulation of fire alarms, providing for the regulation of gated communities, providing for the emergency prohibition of burning or use of fireworks, and related matters, providing for penalties and remedies, providing for a savings provision, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Mr. Cobb, can you enlighten us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of the proposed amendments is to implement the most current fire prevention codes from the state, and also to provide authority for the implementation of a ban on burning, and also the shooting of fireworks during environmental conditions that are a threat to health and safety to the community. It's recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 1630.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. I will open up the public hearing on ordinance number 1630. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address this at this time? Yeah, usually fire safety codes don't bring out a lot of folks. All righty. I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to the pleasure of council.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adopt Resolution 1630.
Ordinance 1630.
Ordinance 1630. I
Thank you.
apologize.
Motion second. Councilman Schenk, you have the floor. Good. Councilman Hagan?
Good.
Councilman Britton?
Good.
Deputy Mayor?
Good.
Wow, I like that. All righty, well, Chief, go out and keep everybody safe with the new codes.
Exactly.
Is this going to make it even tougher for people now? Is that what we're reading into this, or did it streamline anything? Or should I ask Mr. Kavanaugh that question?
No, it's not substantial changes. The most important feature of that was
Okay. Okay, great. All right, the motion on the table is to adopt ordinance 1630. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along. We're up to item number 14, which is resolution number 3070-15, a special exception use order number 199-15 to allow a motor vehicle repair and maintenance, no body work, use in a commercial C2 zoning district. Mr. Cobb, can you enlighten us on this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The city's land development code allows certain uses to be permissible within a zoning district, and then it also allows certain uses to be permissible with the issuance of a special exception use order. And then lastly, there are certain uses that it does not allow within a certain zoning district. Tonight, you have a request to issue a special exception use order to allow a motor vehicle repair and maintenance no body work use within a commercial C2 zoning district. The subject property is located at 1140 Alafaya Trail. It is designated commercial on the city's 2025 future land use map, and it's also designated commercial C2 on the city's official zoning map. The applicant proposes to construct an express oil change. A total of 2,695 square feet will be used for the service area. 1,330 square feet will be used for the oil change area. And there's also 565 square feet, which would be for an air-conditioned office area. The property is currently used as a secured facility for vehicle private parking and storage, consisting of 1.97 acres. This property has recently undergone a lot split, or a non-statutory subdivision, to divide the property into two lots. One of the lots is the lot proposed for the special exception use order. Land Development Code Section 3.3D2 provides criteria that are used to review such requests. The staff has reviewed this application regarding those criteria, and their findings are presented in your agenda memorandum. Based on these findings, the staff does recommend approval of issuing the special exception use order. The Land Planning Agency conducted a public hearing at its Tuesday, September 22nd, 2015 meeting and recommended adoption of resolution number 3070-15. It's recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution number 3070-15.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Is the applicant present? Name and address for the record, please. And
thank you, Mr.
then
Mayor.
The floor is yours.
My name is Matthew West. I'm with Little John Engineering at 1615 Edgewater Drive, Suite 200, Orlando, Florida. I want to take a minute or two to echo what Mr. Cobb said, and also, before I do that, introduce the other folks here that are part of this application. Mr. John Davis with Express Oil Changes here, and then the future owners of the property and the business, and they will also run the business, are here, and that's Mr. Russ Varnold and Deb Dykeman. Mr. Davis will be here to talk about the company history and the operations, if you have questions about the operations. And also, we were, in our discussions with city staff, it was recommended that we address architecture at this time. So Mr. Davis will be here to address architecture if you have questions about that. In summary, when you look at the staff report, we're in concurrence with the staff report. We meet or exceed the land development code requirements of the city, including off-street parking. We are providing additional landscaping over and above the code. We exceed the open space requirement. We meet the floor area ratio requirement. So in essence, we are meeting your land development regulations. And we are also compatible or not incompatible with the surrounding uses. You have commercial to the north and a vacant lot, which was part of this lot, split to the east. You have across an arterial roadway, you've got a shopping center and retail across the street to the west. And to the south, you have the Bank of America, and you have some offices to the south. As Mr. Cobb pointed out, right now the property is being used for RV and vehicle storage, and this would be certainly a better addition from a tax-based standpoint on that property. And like I said, it is compatible with everything around it, and it is in a zoning that is permissible and a land use where this type of use is permissible. Also, when you open the public hearing, we'd like to reserve time for rebuttal of anybody that, or clarifications if somebody from the public has a question or an issue about our application. We'd like to reserve time after the public hearing is closed to address those items. And at this time, I'd ask Mr. Davis to come up with me, and he can give you a brief history of the company and its operations.
Good afternoon. My name is John Davis with Express Oil Change and Service Center, address 1880 South Park Drive, Birmingham, Alabama 35244. Appreciate you guys meeting with us and holding this meeting, and kind of want to go in a little bit of who Express Oil Change is and kind of what we are, what we represent. Founded in 1979 with one store. Since then, we've grown pretty substantially to 249 different locations. Right now, we have 102 corporate-owned stores. So we corporately own 102 stores. The remainder of those stores are franchise-owned. Those franchisees go through about a 12-week training process with us. They must abide by all of our requirements. We've got the type of oil to use, the type of service that we do, the type of everything down from camera systems. We're watching everything and so forth. So and we have a very high screening process for those franchise owners. Plus, it's a very expensive building. We're talking a brick and stone building. So it's not a cheap one. We are a premium price, premium product, and premium service provider. We lead the industry in service. Basically, we've got 3 oil change bays. I don't know if we have a site plan that was part of the packet, but we have 3 oil change bays and 5 or 6 service bays in this one. 6 service bays in this one. And about 75% of the business that comes through that is the oil change. We average 36 vehicles a day. And we lead the industry in that. So that's a very small amount of vehicles that come through there. Also, the goal to our customers is to get you in and out as fast as possible. So we know that customers have other things to do. Nobody wants to get their oil changed. It's something you put off. So we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So we have a 10-minute oil change. And then mechanical service, we mainly do repairs, brakes, minor repairs, things of that nature. Because we don't want to tie up a bay doing major engine repair or something like that. That doesn't pay as much. So we'd rather have the brakes, the tune-ups, and that sort of stuff, and get you in and out. We have ASE certified mechanics in every store. ASE certified mechanics. It's a career-oriented company. A lot of people have come up. I've been with the company 9 years now, and it's amazing because in this industry you don't see that very often. And this is coming from the CEO down. This is a different company from what the industry typically is, and we are family-oriented. We've got people there that are 30-year veterans of the company. The other item I wanted to discuss was the elevations and the look of the building. We met with planning staff, and we have our normal building, our standard prototype, has a blue metal roof. And staff said, we don't like the roof. So that's a trademark look for us. But we love the lot. We love the city. We really want it. We want to be here, so we're willing to work with that. So what we decided to do is get rid of the blue roof. We already had brick, we already had stone on the building. So we put up, right now, a charcoal roof, charcoal-colored roof. If you guys take a look at it, that one of the tops, the front elevation, that would be facing the street. And, you know, it's a standing seam metal roof, similar to what you have on this building. It's a little different color. You know, stone veneer, that's pretty much it with the building. It is about as nice as it gets from an automotive standpoint. And I asked that we, if you guys discuss, that we have the ability to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In closing, the owners will be the future owners, and they will be operating the business, so you'll have local ownership. This will not be one of the corporately owned facilities, so your owners will be here and they'll be local.
Is that the end of your presentation? Okay. This is a public hearing. I do not have any written requests. Usually resolutions do require that, but as always, I will open it up to anybody in the audience who'd like to address council on Resolution 3070-15. Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing portion and move on to the pleasure of council.
Mayor, make a motion to adopt resolution number 3070-15.
Second.
Motion second. Councilman Shank?
I appreciate you bringing the architecture.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I agree. Beautiful building.
Councilman Britton?
Good.
Councilman Hankin?
Welcome to the city. And I also appreciate you taking care of that building, because architecture is very important to us in the city, and I know your corporate logos sometimes are important too, but that goes a long way. It'll fit in good, so thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Mr. Davis, you're not an Alabama fan, are you? Oh, that's almost as bad. You're behind enemy lines, so be careful.
Can't believe you admitted that publicly. Having a tough year, though.
Not as bad as us.
Yeah, you could be a knight. That's true. That's true. Well, motion.
We're Gator fans, right? Yeah, we're good.
We're fine.
Yeah, we're good. There you go. We're good.
Like the Knights. That's all right. Be back next year. Motion on the table is to adopt, and you know, I don't want to sound like the difficult one, but you know, I'm just going to point out a few things. And you know, my concern with this, and it has nothing to do in particular with the franchise, it has to do with the use. You know, the use in the area is overrun with this type of use. And that's Main and Main here in Oviedo, you know, 434 in Mitchell Hammock. I mean, I can run down what we still have in the pipeline. We already have an oil change car wash place coming on Mitchell Hammock Road. We've got another auto repair store making an application to come in on Mitchell Hammock Road. We have O'Reilly Auto Parts with an application in to come in on Alafaya Trail. Then, right on 434, we have Tire Plus, Gator Tire. Just outside the city limits, we got Tibbetts, Expert Auto, and a Pep Boys. Then on Mitchell Hammock, in no particular order, we've got Tuffy, Tire King, Two Valvolines, Euromech, Autotech, who owns this land, Discount Auto Parts, AutoZone is over on 419, Napa. Downtown, we have Marty's and another one. You know, I just don't know how many of these we need. I'm not trying to control the market, guys. It's just, in my mind, we can make better use for this land. You know, there was a hotel looking at it at one time years ago. We've got Oviedo on the Park coming in across the street. We have an Albertsons Plaza that's going to redevelop one day. We've got a corner out there that's going to redevelop one day. You've got lots of land behind this land that's going to redevelop one day that it could be all assembled and turned into something. This one-off use is what I have a problem with. So that's my opinion on it. Obviously, it may not be the rest of the council's opinion, and you know, I respect that, but that's the issue that I have with it. So let me just see if there's anything else from any of the other members. Anything else from any of the other members before I let the applicant respond? Come on up.
Yeah, we are an automotive use, but with O'Reilly's and Napa and that type, those are auto parts sales. So we actually partner with them substantially. We buy a majority of our parts through like a Napa or we'll have agreements with them. We'll buy everything.
And I understand that. I was just pointing out the concentration of the use.
Yeah,
all at that intersection. Yeah. It's Main and Main.
You know, what I think, we don't ever compete on price. We're not the guys to compete on price. So I think it's two different types of uses that are out there. I mean, it's the same automotive use, but you have two different customer bases that are out there. So we're going after a completely different customer than they are. Thank you.
Anything else from council? For the good of the order. Motion on the table is to adopt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-1. Moving on, we're up to item number 15, resolution number 3080-15. Oops, bear with me a moment. Live Oak Reserve, Oviedo Seed Area, Brownfield Area. This is our first public hearing. And Mr. Colbert, can you read that resolution 3080-15 by title only, please?
Yes, sir. This resolution is entitled A Resolution of the City Council, the City of Oviedo, Florida, designating an area within the city, a brownfield area upon application from TKG Oviedo, LLC for property located at that area described at Exhibit A, depicted on a map provided as Exhibit B, assigned tax parcel identification number 202132 5SD0A000000 by the Seminole County Property Appraiser, totaling approximately 10 acres in size, providing for designation for the purposes of environmental remediation, rehabilitation, economic redevelopment, providing for legislative findings and intent, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for a savings provision, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the City Council to conduct the first of two public hearings to adopt the Live Oak Reserve Oviedo Seminole Economic Enhancement District, or SEED, as we call them. It is a designation of a brownfield area for a vacant 10-acre commercial site located on the south side of County Road 419 and the west side of Sterling Creek Parkway. Florida statutes, Chapter 376.77 through 376.86, is known as the Brownfield Amendment Redevelopment Act, and it allows for the designation of certain lands as a brownfield area by resolution, and for the corresponding provision of environmental remediation, rehabilitation, and economic redevelopment of that area. The purpose of this SEED designation is to enable the potential remediation and development of the subject property. The brownfield area designation is necessary to further the evaluation, assessment, and potential remediation of the environmental conditions of the parcel. The proposed development of the parcel includes the construction of an approximate 46,000 square foot Publix grocery store with an associated 5,000 square foot additional retail space. The planned development is anticipated to employ approximately 127 persons at the Publix and the retail facilities. An approximate 1 acre out parcel will also be developed with approximately 10,800 square feet of retail use. The anticipated employment associated with the development of the out parcel is 25 persons. This request is consistent with the city's economic development strategic plan. It makes this site available for additional incentive programs that are available through the city's economic development incentives, as well as the state qualified targeted industry tax rebate program, known as QTI. The SEED area designation will provide the property owner access to state and federal assessment and remediation programs, if they're necessary, to facilitate the timely development of the property. The establishment of this seed area requires the adoption of a resolution. It also requires the City Council to conduct 2 public hearings for this resolution. So this is the first public hearing, and tonight you are asked to conduct your public hearing and then to schedule the second and final public hearing for Monday, October 19th, 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Is the applicant present? Do you have any presentation for us?
Good evening, Mayor Presampier, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Madam Clerk. My name is John Jones with Little John Engineering Associates. I am here representing the agenda item. We also have representatives of the property owner and a developer with us this afternoon, or pardon me, this evening, to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions this time? No? Thank you, Mr. Jones. As mentioned, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address council on resolution number 3080-15? I have no written request. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Edmonds, 1022 Vanessa Drive, Oviedo 32765. Mine's more of a question. The seed designation in brownfield area is for rehabilitation of environmentally sensitive areas. Is that correct, Mr. Cobb? Or unless you guys know, or
we'll get the applicant to answer.
Okay, well, I'll probably have a follow-up
Well,
then.
wait. You sit down a second. You finish your comments, and then you sit down, and then I'll get them answered for you.
My comments are contingent on the answer to that question. So,
well, you get one shot at comments. You know how this works.
Okay. Assuming that it is the area that I remember, and I think it is, I will assume that his answer will be yes, that it does affect environmentally sensitive lands. And I would request that if we are going into the first public hearing, that the map of those areas be delineated and an exact explanation as to what the suggestions are for those environmentally sensitive lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant like to respond?
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. My name is Michael Schnapsteiler. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant, TKG Oviedo, LLC. The definition of a brownfield area is a property that has difficulty being redeveloped because of actual or perceived environmental contamination issues. And so that is the issue that is before you all today. So we have a property with a known history of environmental contamination issues, dealing from historic ranching operations at the site. There is a historic cattle dipping vat that was used for a number of years out there, required by the state to actually fill the vat up with pesticides and march your goats, your cattle through there every 14 days to eradicate ticks that were causing impacts to our livestock. And so the reason why a local government typically designates a brownfield area is to provide some state-level incentives to encourage parties to come in and investigate the area, see if there are soil and groundwater issues that result from that historic dipping vat out there. And so at this point, you know, it's really difficult to tell what's out there. The brownfield area designation is kind of the prerequisite to going out there and taking a look out at the site.
Thank you. Just hang on a second. Council have any questions? No. So it already exists out there is what you're saying. The problem, well, the possible problem.
We have identified an area of concern. So with the brownfield area designation, we would then use the program to investigate it.
And if you have to, clean it up. However, the environmental regulations require you to clean it up to answer the question of Mr. Edmonds.
Yes, sir. I just wasn't sure when you say environmental sensitive areas, you know, there are lots of different types of environmental issues that could be at a site, ranging from habitat, species, wetland, and this is specifically an environmental hard impact issue. So,
thank you. Anybody else like to address council? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule the second public hearing on resolution number 3080-15 for October 19th, 2015, here in the Oviedo City Council chambers at Oviedo City Hall, 400 Alexandria Boulevard, Oviedo, Florida, 32765, at approximately 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? No. All righty. Second hearing is set. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. See everybody on the 19th. All righty. First reading of ordinances, we have none. We'll go on to item number 17. It is resolution number 3082-15. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the City Council to consider Site Development Order Number 425-15. This is it does two things. One is that it approves a preliminary subdivision plan for lots 3B and 4 of the Oviedo on the Park development, and then it also provides approval for a preliminary plan, site plan, for Lot A within Oviedo on the Park. The proposed preliminary subdivision plan is located on the northwest intersection of Mitchell-Hammock Road and Oviedo Boulevard. The total land area is 19.93 acres. Property's future land use designation is downtown mixed use, and its zoning district is New Downtown Village Core. Tonight, the City Council will be serving in its responsibility as land use administrator. The applicant proposes to subdivide lots 3B and 4 into 4 lots known as A, B, and C as depicted on the preliminary subdivision plan. There are 2 proposed public right-of-ways. One is a north-south right-of-way that goes from Mitchell-Hammock Road up to Center Lake Lane, and which on the plan is known as City Walk Lane. And then there's also an extension of Microberto Way to the east to connect to Oviedo Boulevard. Lot A is a 9.11 acre site. It will contain mixed-use buildings, which with 246 dwelling units and approximately 10,358 feet of office use. The office uses are proposed to be placed on the ground floor of the buildings fronting on Oviedo Boulevard. A small portion of the office will also be located on the west side of Lot A along Center Lake Lane. A preliminary layout of Lot A is provided within the development plans. The uses for lots B, C, and D have yet to be determined. However, as land use administrators, the development of those properties will have to come before City Council for approval. Concurrency requirements have been satisfied. There are 2 requested deviations, both of which deal with the provision of understory trees within the proposed right-of-ways. One is a 10-tree deviation along Microberto Way to allow 27 trees to be planted instead of 37. The other is to allow the installation of 22 trees along the north-south road, City Walk. That is a 1-tree deviation. The staff has recommended as mitigation for these that the applicant pay into the city's tree bank. That recommendation has already been incorporated into the site development order. It's recommended that City Council adopt resolution number 3082-15.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Applicant present.
Mayor, members of council, my name is Lee Smith. I'm with the law firm of Holland & Knight, 200 South Orange Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32801. I represent the applicant, Park Place Apartments of Oviedo, LLC, whose principal is Mr. Thomas Kavanaugh. We are here requesting that you approve resolution number 3082-15, approving site development order 452-154, Lot 3B and Lot 4 at Oviedo on the Park preliminary subdivision plan, and Center Park Residences, mixed-use development preliminary plan, Lot A. We have with us tonight our engineer, Mr. Paul Yergain of VHB, our civil engineer, and Chris Height of Dix Height and Partners. We would like to proceed by having Ms. Height
present the project to you based on the submitted plan. When Ms. Height has finished her presentation and answered any questions you have, I would like to come back up and let you know, speak a little bit about the compliance of the applicant's application with the Land Development Code and your comprehensive plan. I'd also like to reserve some time if there's any public comment for any rebuttal. With that, Ms. Height.
Hi, Chris Height, Dix Height Plus Partners. We're the landscape architects on the project. Is it possible to have the master plan?
Unfortunately, if that wasn't submitted earlier, it's not.
Is there a copy of the plan that I can reference as a part of the packet? It does. So, as everyone is aware, we've been involved in this project for quite some time. And
Chris, hang on just 1 second. Dr. Correa, is that already on?
Hold on.
Is that okay?
We've seen that. I think it's part of the packet, the last images also.
Yes, it is.
The colored rendering.
Right, I had thought that it might
If
be.
you can find that in there for them.
Which one
that
is
would be
it?
It's
helpful.
the last one.
Last one.
Attachment 4 and 5, yeah. Attachment
We're
4.
getting you a stand here for that.
Attachment 4, you say?
Attachment 4 at the end.
At the end, okay. At the end, is there?
Yeah, the one with the pictures of
okay.
the building. Look
Oops.
at the last one, the picture of the architectural.
This one here.
We'll go to the end of that.
And this is fine, and then we can go to the architecture. I also have copies of the architecture here.
What would I do with that?
So as you know, we've been thrilled to be part of this project. And the current application, the preliminary subdivision plan, we feel does a great job of working to establish the framework for the future of Oviedo on the Park. So as you're aware, this current plan builds on everything that we've done to date, which includes, I'm going to step away and try to speak very loudly.
You can take the mic with you. Yep, comes off.
Awesome. All right, which includes, as you all know, we have the existing Park Place apartments here, of course, the park. We have the approvals of the mixed-use L building, as we like to call it, and then we also have the approval of the retail up front. This preliminary subdivision plan continues that, and what it does is it includes the development of this center street, which is going to be the main retail street, and it also includes the extension of Mike Roberto Way. The level of quality of those roadways equals, and if not even better, than what has already been done around Oviedo on the Park. We plan on, a brick street from curb edge to curb edge, including the parallel parking, planters, all of the same level of detail that we've done before, so continuing that level of aesthetic. And we're doing the same thing with Mike Roberto Way as it comes out and ties to Oviedo Boulevard. So you can see that what we're doing is setting up the block framework for the future development. The other part of the project, the multifamily block, is also made up of street blocks. So all of the street blocks are lined by architecture, including the central block. What's pretty cool about the multifamily portion of the project is that it's portions of it are mixed use, and we mentioned the office that relates very well to Oviedo Boulevard, and then also the mixed use portion that overlooks the park. So in essence, the overall framework really sets up nicely for the future mixed-use and retail components that will be to come. In addition to this plan, we have done several studies relative to the desire to have a nice level of intensity for the retail block. We've done a study of the central block, and we've designed it such that the central block can facilitate a parking garage in the future if the densities require it. In addition, we've done the same study in the block towards Mitchell Hammock Road, and we've found that we can also fit a parking garage there with great liners to facilitate a level of density there. So the development team, I believe I can speak for them, feels like we're really setting up a fantastic framework that facilitates the vision for Oviedo on the Park, complies with the comprehensive plan, and is consistent with the Land Development Code. And quite frankly, we're excited to be presenting this to you today. I would like to pull up the architectural character boards that we included in the packet. They should be towards the end. There we go. The architecture for the multifamily in Lot A is, quite frankly, the design team is pretty excited about it. The images here are the clubhouse elevations, and the previous images are the larger scale of the buildings that create the framework and set up the block structure. As we've mentioned, we have the office development on Oviedo, so we'll have ground floor office along that edge. The colors and framework plays off of the architecture and is inspired by the architecture that was started that's in the park, and we feel that it sets up an opportunity for Oviedo to be pretty much on the cutting edge of multifamily and mixed use. So in the end, we are again really excited about the framework that we've set up for Oviedo on the Park and the vision. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chris. This is Lee Smith. As staff pointed out, the City Council tonight is exercising authority as the land use administrator. The land use administrator is charged to determine if the applicant's application is in compliance with a two-pronged test. Is the application consistent with a comprehensive plan, and does it comply with the applicable requirements of the Land Development Code, engineering standards, and Florida Fire Prevention Code? As a matter of law, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. City staff and evidence our experts have placed in the record demonstrates that our application for a site development order is consistent with a comprehensive plan and the Land Development Code, engineering standards, and fire code. In order to turn down the proposed site development order, there must be legally recognized competent, substantial evidence placed into the record to demonstrate that the proposed plan is not consistent with the comprehensive plan or is not consistent with the Land Development Code, engineering standards, and fire code. With respect to the comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan designates the future land use of the subject property as downtown mixed use. The downtown mixed use designation is consistent with the requested development of office, multifamily, and attached townhome residential units. City staff has correctly determined in its agenda memorandum that our request is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which includes the downtown master plan adopted by the city in 2002. I would like to spend a few moments addressing the consistency with the downtown master plan. The downtown master plan, which I will refer to as your plan, in general terms advances a very simple idea about creating a place. The quest for place is to create a space where residents and visitors come as a matter of choice. These spaces typically revolve around a central or public park that establishes a public atmosphere and provides an ideal setting for neighborly residence and interaction. Your plan provides a similar outcome where it notes that it is to be organized around a passive surrounding, an improved lake with a fully featured outdoor amphitheater and other park improvements. Your plan also provides that the new downtown is to contain a mix of retail, restaurant, office, and residential uses developed in a manner which reflects traditional town planning principles and high standards for design. However, your plan and the professional literature upon which the plan is based recognizes that the ability to develop anything privately or by the government is tempered by market demand and market conditions. When one considers the development status of this project, we would submit and believe any objective observer would agree that this project is on its way to fulfilling the vision that is contained in your plan. Is it complete? No. Is it on its way to completion? Yes. The public amenities have been well situated, and the amphitheater, which anchors the public realm and creates a public space for events and crowd gathering, is completed. The main entry corridor is in place and is lined by existing residential units which are fully occupied and by an approved mixed-use building with first-floor retail. On the main entry, area restaurant establishments are in place or approved by you, and others are sitting with letters of intent, working on terms and conditions. Nothing that is before the Commission this night deviates from your plan. When you examine what is in place today and what is proposed to be put in place tomorrow and what is to be reserved for future development, one can only conclude the elements of place as defined by your plan have been satisfied. Your plan also describes the function of the place, the scale of the activity, the form, which includes street patterns and public places, the vertical landscape, which includes the size and character of buildings, the nature of and access to parking. All of these have been developed presently at some level, and as your plan contemplates, would be undertaken over time. Your plan also provides for elements of place preferred by the original Oviedo Study Committee, and with which the existing and proposed development comply. For instance, your plan states that Oviedo prefers that the place should include public places for assembly. We have done that. The place should be well landscaped. We have done that. The place should contain buildings located adjacent to sidewalks that have relatively continuous facades and should vary between 1 and 4 stories in height, with most at 2 or 3 stories. We have done that. Parking should be landscaped surface lots located behind buildings and in limited areas on street. We have done that. We have done, finally, within your plan, it was noted that the community prefers simple, understated, high-quality architecture, buildings with clean lines and attention to detail but not overly adorned with unnecessary elements. Emphasis is to be on the use of quality materials as opposed to attempting to define building materials that are distinctly preferred. We have done that. The applicant has prepared a plan that not only complies with the general elements of your plan, but also what your plan specifically states Oviedo prefers. With respect to the zoning district for the property is mixed-use district, new downtown village core. Office, multifamily, and attached townhome uses are permitted uses under the mixed-use district, new downtown village core zoning applicable to the property. The property development is consistent with this zoning district, and city staff has so stated in its agenda memorandum. With respect to the master land use plan, the plan we have submitted shows on its face that it meets the requirements of and is consistent with land use, density, floor area ratio, open space, and requirements of the master land use plan. With respect to the land development code, the plan is consistent and compliant with the city land development code except for 2 deviations from the land development code requirements for street trees, showing that we are providing 49 street trees when the land development code requires 60 street trees. due to the proximity and design of angled and parallel parking and sidewalks. Dix Height determined that the current design creates a better and safer condition. In reliance on their professional recommendation and to design the best possible plan, we have included those two deviations, and staff has recommended appropriate mitigation. We concur with staff's recommendation to pay into the city tree bank the cost of installation of 11 trees as mitigation. However, at this time, the applicant withdraws the two requests for deviation and requests approval in accordance with the Land Development Code without deviation. If you prefer that we implement the better, safer design recommended by Dix Height, then the applicant will also accept approval with the two street tree deviations and proposed staff mitigation. Agreements with the city. There are two primary agreements between the applicant and the city that govern the development of Oviedo on the park. The first is an agreement for acquisition, disposition, and planned development of the property dated April 25, 2003, as amended by 6 amendments. We generally refer to this as the acquisition agreement. The acquisition agreement provides for the obligations of the city and Park Place as the developer with respect to the development of Oviedo on the park amenities, which includes the construction of the main roadway, amphitheater, the Center Lake improvements, and other public improvements that have been constructed and completed by Park Place. When Park Place became the owner of the property, it negotiated with the city to step in and complete those improvements under the terms of the acquisition agreement as agreed to by the city and Park Place. All of the amenity improvements were constructed by Park Place under this agreement after the prior developer defaulted and failed to comply with its obligations under the acquisition agreement. Park Place has timely completed its obligations under the acquisition agreement and completed the Oviedo on the park amenities. The second primary agreement is a non-statutory development agreement for Oviedo on the park mixed-use development, including 3 amendments. This development agreement primarily deals with the city's and developers' agreement for when the private property owned by Park Place will be developed and provides for minimum development requirements. The development agreement provides for the development of Oviedo on the park under a schedule which includes 2 phases, the initial phase and the final phase. The initial phase requires only that a minimum of 250 units be completed by 2015. No other development is required during the initial phase. The development agreement also provides that the developer will have no obligation to construct any retail, restaurant, entertainment, theater, or office uses until 2019, although the development agreement gives Park Place the option to construct those uses sooner. Construction of those commercial uses are not required to be commenced until the final phase begins in 2019 and are not required to be completed until 2022. So Park Place has the right to develop only residential units until 2019, and those residential units may include any residential use allowed by the city zoning, and the current zoning allows the residential uses proposed in the applicant's submitted plan. The development agreement further provides, and I quote, "Initial phase development and all additional development on the PAC property may be located at any location on the PAC property if consistent with the Land Development Code and the Master Land Use Plan." The development agreement further states, and I quote, "PAC may develop additional residential units greater than the minimum number at any time in either phase and at any location on the property, included in the Master Land Use Plan, as long as such development is consistent with the Master Land Use Plan and does not preclude the development of 85,000 square feet of street retail, restaurant, entertainment, including theaters, and office uses in the final phase. PAC may develop mixed-use square footage in the initial phase, but is not required to do so. Our engineers, VHB, have specifically determined that this plan before you today in no way precludes the development of 85,000 square feet of street retail, restaurant, entertainment, and office uses as provided by the development agreement, which demonstrates The submitted plan meets the conditions of the development agreement, and therefore the development agreement gives Park Place the right to develop the property in accordance with the submitted plan. I'd ask Paul Yergain to come up real quick and explain his analysis of that to you. Paul.
Good evening. Paul Yergain, VHB, 225 East Robinson Boulevard, Orlando, Florida, 32801. Essentially what we did is we performed an analysis on the site plan that Chris Height from Dick Site presented to you. We took a look at the concept of the remaining area outside of what's in Lot A, and that area, the proposed buildings that are there, exceed 85,000 square feet. So we literally just took in AutoCAD, dimensioned each of the buildings, and that exceeds 85,000 square feet.
Thank you, Paul. So to recap, Park Place and the city agreed that the only required development until 2019 was the construction of a minimum of 250 residential units. Park Place is moving your plan forward much faster than is required. What Park Place has done since it purchased the property are the following. Completed the 250 residential units required in the initial phase on time. They have completed all of the veto on the park amenities, including the amphitheater and park improvements on time and on budget, including managing all of the work the city was required to complete under the acquisition agreement at no charge to the city. Park Place has brought Ashton Woods, one of the state's highest quality townhome developers, to develop the townhome residential portion of the property. Park Place has contracted to sell the parcel at the corner of Mitchell Hammock and City Plaza Way to Morse Development for construction of a Starbucks and Chipotle Mexican Grill, which plan the city has recently approved. Park Place has designed a mixed-use building containing 13,704 square feet of retail on the first floor and 32 residential units on the above floors, which the city has approved. Park Place has recently entered into an exclusive brokerage arrangement with a well-known and well-connected brokerage firm to solicit retail and restaurant tenants for the future development parcels. So far, it has received and is negotiating 2 letters of intent with quality national and regional restaurants. We expect that interest will increase when our broker can confirm the approval of this plan, allowing for the additional project residents necessary to support commercial users. In conclusion, Park Place has presented you with a plan and request for site development order which complies with the comprehensive plan, the applicable zoning, the land development code, engineering standards, Florida Fire Prevention Code, the master land use plan, and is in compliance with the development agreement. Park Place has fulfilled all of its obligations under all of its agreements with the city in a timely and professional manner. In sum, you have a successful project in which Park Place comes before you this evening with the goal of simply continuing it and pushing it forward. And in that context, your staff has properly concluded that we are consistent with a comprehensive plan, meaning that they agree with us that we have met the test of satisfying the intent and purpose of your plan and are consistent with the land development code, and that they have recommended you approve the requested plans and site development order. The applicant has clearly met the 2-pronged test I first mentioned that the land use administrator must use to determine if a site development order must be approved, and that test was simply, is our application consistent with the comprehensive plan, and does our plan comply with the applicable requirements of the Land Development Code, Engineering Code, and Fire Code? Your staff has already determined that these elements have been satisfied. Unless you introduce evidence tonight which would be recognized by a court of law as a competent, substantial evidence that this 2-pronged test has not been met, then the applicant is entitled under law to the approval of the requested site development order. We urge you to approve this next phase in the development of Oviedo in the Park. Thank you very much.
Anybody in the audience like to address council? Hearing none, I'm going to close public comment and call a 10-minute recess. All righty. We're going to reconvene the hearing. It is approximately 20 minutes after 8. We're on resolution number 3082-15. There were no public comments, nobody wishing to speak. The applicant did ask to readdress the council before we went into deliberation. Is that okay with the council?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So all you know, I'm Tom Cavanaugh, Packland Development Corporation. I am here to address any and all questions. Now that we got that out of the way, nothing's changed. The vision is here. I'm still giving 150%. The mixed use, the retail, the restaurants, they're there, they're coming. The residential side of it, as proposed, is an outstanding design, top of the line, quality second to none. I have sat in front of this podium many, many times, and I have done everything that I have ever committed to do. I've gone above and beyond the call of duty as it relates to getting things done and fulfilling the vision. And before the discussion starts amongst the council members, I would hope that you take that into consideration. This is a sincere application. We are ready to get things moving ahead out there to meet the vision. I am ready, willing, and able to dedicate my staff, my company, and my time in order to see this through to the end. There are certain things that we need to do. Build it, they will come. I am not changing anything as it relates to the vision. As a matter of fact, I'm probably adding to it as far as it relates to the quality aspects of things. Streets that are lined with pavers. All the right-of-ways will be, like as mentioned earlier, as good, if not better, than anything that's out there already. The sign package, which will be discussed, hopefully be discussed after this agenda item, is probably one of the better sign packages in all of the Tri-County area. It'll look fantastic once the signs, once the hardscape, once the beautification project, the landscaping, and the actual construction commencement starts. I'm here to answer any and all questions if you have them. Just let me know what you need.
Tom, stay there for 1 second.
Sure.
Just a couple of things that I want to just clarify. Some may know already, but just for the record, that what you're proposing tonight, the retail stuff portion of it, what are you planning in the mixed use part of it? What's going in there? Can you give us names of what you're planning on putting in there?
Right now we have office over here, this entire L-shaped building. We have numerous letters of intent sitting on my desk to fill out. As Mr. Smith mentioned earlier, we are currently under discussion with 2, possibly 3 national retailers that hopefully this block will come together. It's a delicate balance here. You don't want to seed everything on Mitchell-Hammond. You want to work your way back, make sure you have the blend of the quality retailers. I get the vision, okay? There's not a single retailer that I'm talking to that would classify it, no disrespect to anybody in the audience, as a hair salon, as a Chinese takeout restaurant. I get the vision. We're not even entertaining those types of discussion. We are containing our discussions to, the top 20. A lot of this has to be boutique-ish type stuff, Winter Park type stuff. There'll be a gentle mix of national guys, okay, and boutique-ish, eclectic people who maybe already have a business in Oviedo, maybe have a business in Winter Park, maybe have a business in Windermere that want to be here. The big box, we're not even asking. We're not even entertaining big boxes. Okay, I get what you guys want. You want the destination orientated, pedestrian friendly. You want people to come here. I want the same thing. So I hope that answers your question. There's only so much I can do to attract and negotiate with potential retailers, because as it sits today, I really don't have anything. I have a vacant lot. Okay, to tell them the streets are going in. I got to show them the pretty pictures. I've got to show them the community. And the community is Ashton, it's all the other residential is potentially being built up and down the street. It's the residential here. It's the pretty pictures of the boulevard. You know, they want to be at Main and Main. They want to be on the street. It's difficult for me to even sign anything with them because they could turn around and throw it back at me and say, you signed this and told me that that street's going to be there and all this landscaping and all this beautification project is going to be there. I don't really have those approvals. Okay? One of the things that I've been stressing with the city manager is we have the sign package that we're working on. We need to expedite that. We need to get that approved. I need to be able to show people what the signage out here is going to look like. Whether it's identification signs, whether it's directional signs, whether it's signs for the amphitheater, whether it's marquee signs for the development. All that's contained in the sign package that I think we're going to be talking about later.
These restaurants that you talk about that would be, I guess, B, C, and D, those other lots, these bigger ones that you want, are we really talking 2021?
Oh, no.
Because I heard Mr. Smith clearly talk about 2019, 2021, and frankly, I'm just going to be honest with all of you, the residents are getting tired, and they want some toys out there. And I hear where you're going. That's why I asked you to come up here and talk about this. I mean, you said they're coming, but when I hear 2021, that scares the living daylights out of me.
Let's clarify that for the record.
That's what we
Mr.
need.
Smith was alluding to was the fact that we have an executed agreement that sets the standards of performance for not only the city, but also the developer. Okay? Those were the outside dates. Okay? There's no way I'm waiting that long. I mean, I've got to go out and solicit the people that are going to be here. Okay? Because this residential development, Ashton's residential development, they want the same thing that you want. They want to be able to walk down to this restaurant right here and have a martini. They want to walk to this restaurant and possibly get a steak. Okay? They want to go to a sports bar. Sit down, watch your favorite football team play. They want that. Trust me. Okay? Bringing this to the table builds significant value here and everything else that's being developed out there. It should make your life and everybody else's life easier selling all the remaining land, again, assuming you approve the development up and down Levita Boulevard, which should make it real easy for filling in all those parcels.
Good for now.
Anything else, Mr. Kavanaugh? So, Mr. Kavanaugh, I understand then that you'd be willing to amend the agreement and move those dates up a little bit, give us some comfort?
I can't amend the agreement because I'm at the mercy of what's going on in the public markets. Okay? And until I get clarity, and if I do, I will come here and tell you, guys, we don't even need to move the dates. I'll come here and tell you, I got XYZ signed for a letter of intent. I got 4 more interested. The minute I get letters of intent signed, I'll disclose them to you. I will work my rear end off to accelerate the time frame. I get it. You know, as Councilman Hankins said, the toys. There's nobody in this room, well, I'm sure there's somebody in this room, that wants the toys more than I want. Can I make that commitment and accelerate the time frame? I cannot at this time. If I build it, put the roads in, they will come. Okay? The commitment that I have made to staff in the city is that I will spend the money, I will assume the risk of putting in all these roads. This is an expensive task. It's a laborious task. Okay? It has risk. If I had my way, I really wouldn't put in $2 million worth of roads, maybe 3. I haven't got the final costs. So that I could hope, and hope's a strong word, that all the retail goes. I'd rather just get the retail, put the roads in later. But I've made the commitment. I think it pulls the development together. I think it solidifies and clearly establishes where the retail's going. And the plan works. It's a beautiful road coming in and out.
How many square feet of retail is represented there?
You know, I don't know the exact, and maybe Chris Hyde can do it, but Last time we chatted, we had about 120.
Yeah, we have to figure out block by block. Over the commitment.
If the market dictates, I can put more. I can go higher. What's going to necessitate to go higher is a parking structure. And no, I can't commit to a parking structure. Because if we go out and get 10 restaurants, there's no way in hell the parking is going to work. I got to go up. If, and again, you have another bite at the apple, because I have to come back here, show you the pretty pictures. If it turns out that it's all eclectic, retail, similar to what's happening down on Park Avenue, and the surface parking works, great. You guys have seen the renderings. I've disclosed to you who they are, and we could together make a business decision. I get the height issue. I've had a few conversations. Okay. We know that potentially can go up. This is clearly available, the orange, for putting mixed use above it. I'll disclose for the record, there are restaurants that not the 2 letters of intent that we're talking to, but there are restaurants that say adamantly, nobody's going above me. They don't want anybody above them. They make too much noise. They have bands. They are open late. And it's not that the residents they're concerned about above. It's they hate them coming down to their establishments and telling them all the time, you're playing your music too loud, you're playing your music too loud. So they just take the path of least resistance for them to say, guys, if you want me here, don't put anybody above me. And we can make that decision later. It's just a question of who's interested, who's coming, and how bad do they want to be here.
How long would all of that you have here tonight and the roads and all of that, everything in a perfect world, take you to finish all of that?
Well, everything we're asking approval for here, the roads have to go in first. There's an amendment being proposed by staff, which I will agree to, that the roads will go in before any type of COs are issued. Fine. The roads are going to take 8-10 months, let's just say. Okay. This one's being built immediately. 5. Then we're pushing this through, and we'll push number 4 all the way through. That in itself, depending on the construction sequencing and the timing of events, should take 8 to 10 months. The rest of the development is going to take 16 months, 18 months. During that time frame, we should, and I need to emphasize the word should, because I don't make the markets. Okay, the markets kind of come to me and say, I want to be in Oviedo. This is a great project. I want to be here. We should, in that time frame, be having significant conversations with a whole host of different people.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question. So you're saying if you got approval on this, once this is all in and people see it, you should be able to come and tell us that you got some agreements there once that's all done for some big restaurants and other stuff that we're looking for.
For example, we're talking to a use that I would like to see here. It's taken 4 months to get their director of real estate to town. He'll finally be here, he promised me, by the end of the month. That's just how these guys work. You know, it's not Oviedo, Florida that they're concerned about. It's the other 15 locations in North Carolina, South Carolina, Atlanta, Orlando, and when they say, okay, we want to be in Orlando, where do we want to be in Orlando? Where can we go? That's some of the discussions I'm having.
I'm good.
Any other questions?
No, I just want to say that I like the drawing, I like the rendering, and I think you have a really good plan, and I think it's going to turn out to be beautiful, just like everything that you've done so far.
Thank you. Appreciate the support.
Tom, the key for us really, and you and I have spoke about this twice recently this past week, and I don't mind disclosing that, but you know, my job here is, you know, I honestly didn't need the history lesson from, with all due respect, from Mr. Smith. I didn't need to go that. I know why you did it.
And we didn't need the court reporter here.
We get stuff done in Oviedo when it's you and Chris. That's what, you know, got me aggravated here tonight.
Like I said,
I've been rolling my eyes and stuff because I didn't expect all of that. But what I asked you to do is what you've done. Basically, for me, I need to know you're going to be here, which you have done a great job out there with everything you did, and you got to give credit where credit's due. But these citizens have been so restless, and they're dependent on the five of us to, for lack of a better word, to deliver this for them. And I know you're working as fast as you can. I truly believe, though, and I will just say this for the record, that if you plopped a huge restaurant out there right now, it'd be so busy they wouldn't know what to do with it. But I will take you at your word, what you're dealing with. These people want to see this, but you've told us all tonight that it's all coming, and this is what you need. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct. And for the record, I need the citizens to support us.
Right.
I need them to support that development. I need to come and have them go to dinner. I need to have them go to the bagel place. I need to have them go to the breakfast place. So this is, we were sitting up here, and we're in this kind of together, but at the end of the day, the citizens need to come.
Yeah. I got it.
All right. Any other questions? We're going to make a motion, and then there'll be more questions, but I have something for you to ponder while you sit. I would like to, well, you didn't have to sit down real quick, but would you consider amending the agreement that there is no more residential that is not mixed use? And would you commit to 100K of retail? And you could think that over, because we're going to get a motion, and then we'll discuss it. All righty. Where are we at? We're up to the pleasure of council. Need a motion from somebody for anything.
I'll make a motion to, let me go back here. That we adopt resolution number 3082-15. I have here some conditions. Is this already?
You can read that into it. Read in condition 1 and 2, right, Brian?
Yes, sir. Those conditions that are on the dais are not in the site development order. So if you wish to include them, you would need to include them.
Have they been discussed with Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. He was provided them.
Okay.
And you would need to include them as part of your motion.
Okay. Motion to adopt resolution 3082-15 with the following conditions of approved added to site development order number 452-15. Do I need to read both of those?
I would read them, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Number 1, the construction of the infrastructure for the Lot 3B plus Lot 4 at Oviedo on the Park preliminary subdivision plan, including but not limited to roadways, utilities, stormwater, hardscape, and landscape, and the construction of the Park Place Apartment Phase 2 mixed-use building, SDO number 433-14, shall commence prior to or concurrently with the development construction of Center Park Residences mixed-use preliminary plan, Lot A, site plan, mixed-use buildings. Number 2, the certificate of occupancy of the Park Place Apartments Phase 2 mixed-use building, site development order number 433-14, and the dedication of the infrastructure for Lot 3B and Lot 4 at Oviedo on the Park preliminary subdivision plan, including but not limited to roadways, utilities, stormwater, hardscape, and landscape, shall occur prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for the Center Park Residences mixed-use preliminary plan, Lot A, mixed-use building.
We have a motion with conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Deputy Mayor, you have the floor.
No, I don't have anything other than it's a good plan, and you make a lot of sense when you're talking about it, and you get the residents, you get the people in there. I know Oviedo, the residents here are very excited about it, and we want it done next year. We want the whole thing done next year, which we know is impossible, but what you've done up to this point has been beautiful, first class, very high quality. So I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the park even better.
Councilor Britton, you have the floor.
Well, I did have a conversation with Mr. Kavanaugh and Mr. Cobb to go over this the other day, and yeah, this is what we want. We got to have the infrastructure first. Tom, you know as well as all of us, we want to have something to show before we start putting apartments up again, and that's what this really is all about. Let's do some stuff concurrently so we have something to show for it, and then you can go do the apartments. So carry on.
Councilman Shank.
I know what we're here for, and we strayed a lot. Although, as Councilman Hankins said, I do appreciate the lesson, Lee. But I'll also say that part of this is we've done a lot, and the citizens have done a lot, and that's the one thing we keep saying is we hear a lot. We keep hearing from the citizens. They want that next part. We all do, and that's part of the partnership. But I felt like there's a smugness here, and again, with the court reporter, et cetera, there was a smugness here that you've done. We're well over $10 million of citizens' public money and a 15-year plan, besides all that Dick Lathrop had done years ago to create that vision. That is that vision. I'm not going to disagree with anything that's put on that paper. It looks like what it was 15 years ago and needs to move on, but there's a smugness here that I don't appreciate at all, and that, we are partners. You got a lot of money invested too. That park is our payment. You did build it for us. We appreciate that, but with the citizens' money. The roadways and the amenities that are along those roadways were given, the citizens gave something for that, along with $2 million plus that we approved a couple of meetings ago for those beautiful roadways that are designed. That's the citizens' money. So, as I kept hearing that, the only thing that was thrown at us was it's our plan, your plan, your plan. That was the only thing we did was your plan. So I don't appreciate that at all, to be honest with you. Because as a partnership, we got a lot invested in this too, and we deal with it every day. The citizens every day go, we don't want more apartments. I understand that they're going to be there. They have to be there to create the density that we've 15 years ago looked at and said, it's going to be there. Whether they moved here 2 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago, that was the plan to put there. So they got to kind of get on board, is how I look at it. So I'll agree with all of that stuff. But again, I think there's a little bit of a smugness and throwing at us as the city that we're constantly berated at. When we have to deal with this every day and explain the same thing you just explained here to Councilman Henkin, we're explaining every day to the citizens, saying, where's that restaurant we were promised a year and a half ago? I've heard names a year ago, where are those restaurants? And we sit there every day and say, they're coming. You just got to understand, there's a market, there's this. So I didn't appreciate that part of this whole presentation, to be honest with you. But I know what we're here for. And there's nothing wrong with, you're meeting all the expectations. As I spoke to you today, and I did. And again, I didn't realize you called, and I apologize for that. But, my comments only about this relate more to the architecture that aren't part of the decision tonight, and relate to that. And I hope to have a time before, as we move on, that relate to that before we get too far in, that relate to that part of it. But as far as design, if I look at that picture 15 years ago, the one that was first picked, that's what it looks like. And again, we have to sell that to the people of Oviedo also, the same as you're telling us again. We sell that every day.
Councilman Henkin?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say a couple things, Tom. We work better when it's just us and Chris. That's it. And Lee, we love you to death. We really do. I'm not beating up on you, but honestly, I'm
going to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure the mayor, he goes last, I'm sure. But, I mean, honestly, I know why you're here, and I know why the court reporter's here. But, honestly, I think wherever we would have wound up tonight would have been done better. I come from the school where I shake someone's hand and guy tells me, I'm going to be there for you, and I don't worry about it. And that's what Tom has told me a million times, and he told me yesterday. We talked on a Sunday. And I asked him, I said, listen, I got, 38,000 people here that are asking us, like Councilman Shank said, all the time, can you just get me one big restaurant out there? When Chipotle and Starbucks and, Panera's is there, and it's kind of giving them a little vision. But I think you all could appreciate the pressure we're under. I think the five of us combined here, maybe like 48 years or something sitting here. God, we're getting old, you know? We've been here from day one on this, so there was never going to be any bumps in the road. So in the future, you know, Lee, we always like to see you, but you could have stayed home and watched the game tonight. We would have got there. I'm sure there's still going to be some bumps. But Tom, all I'll say for you this, you satisfied a couple things I asked him to do yesterday, is to tell us on the record you're going to be here and you're going to finish this, because we had that awful time with Broad Street that we don't ever want to get, and I don't ever feel that with you. I really don't. You said that. You told us these big restaurants are coming. We're good. You know, Chris explained, you explained why you need this. My question to you when you were up there, Lee, would have been, why do I have to do it in your phasing? Why can't I do it in my phasing and bill those first? You know, but I already got some legal information, and you guys are following it there. But just don't leave us hanging. Don't leave 38,000 people that voted for this overwhelmingly and asked, we want it, we want to go out there, and we want to play. We know how successful it is. You know, all right, you guys had a bad night, but we'll forgive you. You know, just go build it and get it as soon as possible. And Tom, if you can get us one big one out there before this all happens, we would love that, you know. But enough said. Now
Good.
look out.
Yeah. Lee, come on up. Thank you for your eloquence on the history of the agreements that we were all here and are well aware of.
Yes.
It was very well put. Tightened it up real nice. I like that. But you did say a couple of things, and I want you to show it to me. I don't want them to show it to me. I want you to show it to me because you said it. Show me the public places for assembly that PAC Development has provided for this Oviedo on the Park. Show them to me. PAC Development, not the city.
Oh, there's the amphitheater.
No, that's the city. You said, and I wrote it down, public places for assembly that have been provided by the developer. That's what you said. Show me.
I think that's, well, under the
by the developer, paid
under the
for by the
acquisition
developer.
agreement, those have been provided. It was an agreement to provide.
Right, but that isn't what you said. You said they, and she can read it back to us. Should we have her do that?
I understand that. I mean, I'm saying.
If that's the case, Mr. Kavanaugh can write us a
agreement-
check for $5 million, and then you guys can claim that you built the public spaces, just like Broad Street Partners was going to do. That didn't happen. Show me all the parking behind the buildings. You said that. We are providing, as per the agreement, parking behind the buildings. Show me all the parking behind buildings.
Parking behind buildings?
Looks like I see it from a road.
This is all parking behind buildings?
Looks like, well, that's a private road. I'll give you that. Private road, I'll give you that.
Parking behind buildings?
Okay, what about that big empty lot I'm looking at on the front facing Mitchell Hammock Road, or the other one on Mitchell Hammock Road?
Here?
Yeah.
Parking behind buildings?
Where? I see parking facing Mitchell Hammock Road. I'm looking at parking.
There is some. I didn't say it was all parking behind buildings.
Well, you said all parking behind buildings. We can have her read it back. You know, I'm with Councilman Schenk. I just cannot believe that this is how supposedly our partners in this came into us this evening. You know what? It is just, I mean, I have every right to make a motion, just continue this to some date uncertain so I can review every darn thing that you said to us tonight, and I'd be perfectly within our right.
I understand that.
Because you said a lot.
I did.
How am I supposed to remember all of that and dispute anything you said? It's a lot of reading. I mean, it just was completely uncalled for to come in here like bullies tonight.
It's not our intent. I'm sorry you took it that way.
No, it was your intent, okay? And that's
It was my intent to state I wanted to make sure council understood the nature of the agreements that my client entered into in connection with this project. I didn't know if you all had recently reviewed the development agreement, knew the time frames, knew the obligations. My intent was to point out that my client has exceeded his obligations to the city in good faith. If you took it otherwise, I'm sorry, but that was my intent. And on that basis, we think that it merits approval.
But there was so much information that we have to review now. I mean, I don't think that was your intention. You wanted a decision tonight, and now I'm just all confused. All righty. Tom, come on up. Help me with my confusion. Will you agree to amend the development agreement that no more residential that is not mixed use will be built out here at Oviedo on the Park?
Well, I can't do that. Let me just
Oh,
explain.
more I have to review now.
Well, you know, in all due respect, you guys can review whatever you'd like to review. That's what you want to do. You have that prerogative. I can't tell you not to. I can't tell you to do it.
You came up earlier and said, these are the apartments and these might be mixed use, so why can't we just commit that everything else that'll be built will be mixed use? Please.
It's nice that we say that here and stop these things out. We're currently talking about
Well, I don't want it all to be mixed use. If you want to add more residential, it will be mixed use. That's what I'm asking.
multiple players for the site right here. And one of the conversations we're having hide kind of the architecture or the lack of thereof, the parking structure. There's some conversation about lining this road with residential units. Totally in character. Okay. However, it doesn't have a mixed use component for it. It's primarily being designed to hide a side of a building. Now, I can go example if you want. For another example.
That's what we're here for. Let's hear them all.
Another example. If I get a restaurant here that wants to be on that corner, in my opinion, it's the prime corner. I just gave an example earlier that they will not tolerate, nor will they approve, okay, residential above it.
That's fine.
So you can't ask me to pigeonhole myself into making a commitment that honestly hasn't even been thought out. I'd like to, as we said before, these
yet,
are coming back.
But yet your lawyer came up tonight and backed us into a corner.
My lawyer, as he stated earlier, went through the documents to remind everybody that we have given a tremendous commitment to this. Although the citizens of Oviedo...
I'm there with you.
Okay. The citizens of Oviedo have put a tremendous amount of money into this project. Let's not forget about the money that I've put in. And when you eloquently chastise Mr. Smith a little bit about what does Mr. Kavanaugh have in this or what's a public place, let's not forget that a lot of my money went to pay for these roads. I will concede the fact that none of my hard cash went into the amphitheater, but I will tell you, as Mr. Cobb can attest to, there was no fee. I donated money, okay, to finish the park.
You did.
My entire staff was out there countless hours.
You did.
Multiple budget overruns. Not multiple.
We did have some. We had some value engineering. I agree.
There are budget overruns that I took out of my own pocket to pay for. Not the city's money, my money. Okay? A developer, not a developer, but a construction consultant, would have charged the city anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000 to do what I did out here. That was gratis. Now, wasn't hard cash, but certainly I gave a tremendous time and my staff for 1 year supervising this. So I got some sweat and I do have some money in the public places out there.
And nobody is disputing. And nobody is disputing that Phase 1, which is essentially what's out there now, is exactly what was approved. You've never heard me say that once. You've heard me do nothing but compliment you on Phase 1. The only real change to the first phase was the L-shaped mixed-use building was pushed off to Phase 2, and the L-shaped, was that number 2 on it? I can't tell.
L-shaped building number 2, right?
Yeah, right. That was supposed to be in Phase 1. We pushed that off to Phase 2, and then we also allowed you to take the retail out from under Park Place and move it over to the mixed-use side, which is fine. That was a decision we all made to get the project off the ground,
Agreed.
and it's going swimmingly.
Agreed.
The pressure that this council is facing is the lack of retail, let's call it, because retail is a broad enough stroke, in relation to the housing units, which were all part of the plan. None of us would disagree with you. I mean, heck, Tom, if you came in here and said, I'm putting a 7-story building next to the lake with an elevator and a garage and a donut around it, you'd be within your rights to do it. And I actually might even like it better, but be that as it may. All I'm asking is that we're done with residential-only buildings. That's all I'm asking. So that way we can go to the residents and say, look, guys, everything else is going to be mixed use out here. He's committed to 100K of retail, not 85. That was my next question. I just thought I'd slip it in there. Just so we have something to hang our hat on, so we can say to these residents, guys, look what's coming. We're going to make this happen, and it's going to be spectacular. That's all I'm asking for.
Bottom line is, it doesn't matter if there's 70,000 square foot of retail out there or 100.
It doesn't. You're right.
Okay. As long as it's done the way you want it and it's the right retail,
Well,
and it's up on the street.
as long as it's at least 85,
Right.
evidently.
Fine.
Mr. Lee made a very good point of telling us that tonight.
Other than you trying to extract something from me, it really has no relevance. I already told you that I would give you 150% to bring, and I understand the vision. Pigeonholing me into making a decision right now does nobody any good.
Okay, so should we continue it so we can all think about it?
We don't need to continue it. I mean,
Okay, well
I think we all know what the issue here is, okay, that we put forth a plan that meets the vision, and I'm trying hard. I really
Tom,
am. Okay?
I don't have any problem with your plan.
Okay.
Have I once said I have a problem with that plan?
80,000 square feet of retail does nothing for
I just want to know that we're at the end of residential-only buildings. That's all I need to know. You can build all the mixed-use buildings you want, Tom. That's what the thing was designed to do.
I can't commit that to you. 'Cause what you're going to do is...
Why?
Everybody up here, especially Councilman Hagan, wants a restaurant. And I want a restaurant. Okay. Now you're going to tell me and paint me into a corner that says, you can't bring a restaurant here unless you put residential above it.
No, Tom, that's not what I'm saying.
And what are you saying?
Okay,
That's exactly what you're saying.
Let me help clarify. All I'm saying is that you will not build any more residential-only buildings. You could build all the commercial building you want all by its lonesome. I just don't want another apartment building in there without it being mixed use. You want to build another mixed-use building, knock yourself out. You could, Tom, you could build 40,000 square foot of retail on the bottom and 4 floors of apartments or condos if you want. I could care less. I just don't want to see another apartment-only building. That's all I'm asking. So if I'm not clear, I do apologize.
The example that I gave you earlier about adding on some multifamily units next to parking structures.
But you could always come back later on and say, hey, guys, I have to do this.
This has to come back before you're not asking permission. If you don't like what I'm bringing you, don't approve.
No. You can see, this is how we're going to operate from now on in the future, because you set the precedent this evening. You're going to have Lee come up here and tell us every reason in the world why we have to approve what you're saying. You're going to bring this young lady in under the threat of lawsuit, and that's how we have to operate now. So if you don't want to agree to this, we'll just continue. I don't care, because there's a lot of data I got to go review. I'm not asking for a lot. All I'm asking for, Tom, it's very simple. You call us all the time. I need something, I need something, I need something, I need something. You don't have a bigger damn advocate up here than me. Yes, I'm a pain in the you-know-what. I agree. Because I sat there at the very first meeting for this thing in this council chambers. So I am invested in this more than you. All I'm asking is that we are done with residential only. You could build a single or 2-story commercial thing and put a restaurant in it. You could build a building and put apartments above it. I just don't want you to come back in here and all of a sudden tell us, I want to put another apartment complex out on this corner. That's all I'm asking. All I'm asking. Let's just put some finality to this is the plan. If you have to come back and amend that, fine. in, come back. We've amended the darn agreement how many times, Mr. Colbert or Mr. Cobb?
We've amended the development agreement 3 times, and we've amended the acquisition agreement 7 times.
Okay. We're very pliable people, Tom. That's all I'm asking. Give me something to hang my hat on, please. That's all I need. You want me to take a break for 10 minutes?
No. I don't get any more breaks.
We're missing a good football game.
I know. I'm just trying to see how I can phrase this about putting the residential.
Teresa, Brian, do you have...
How about we say this? I'll commit to no more residential, except for the fact where it directly is contiguous or across the street from existing residential, meaning that I could go here, which makes a ton of sense because you put residential here, and there might be a component here.
But that's a mixed-use building because it'll have retail attached to it.
Well, what I can see maybe visioning is this corner right here. Well, okay, if you're saying it's not vertically integrated, it can be attached to it.
I don't care.
Okay, then I can do it. The only one I ask permission for is across the street here, right there. So that these two lots can get together, we're working on a plan right there. As long as I can put residential here, that the definition of no more residential is either vertically or horizontally integrated, I can abide by that. I cannot abide to taking it from 80 to 100. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot there. Then you're going to force me to go to the nail salons and just get everything I can get to make the 100. I'd rather
that's
keep
right.
it. Okay.
I'll give you that. So, other than...
Just say at the corner of Microbutter Way and Avita Boulevard, there's a right, you waive that building, whatever that building is.
Just right here. And
I want to keep moving.
And excluding the definition of residential, hotels are excluded. That falls under commercial.
Yeah, that's fine. Commercial's good, Tom.
Okay. Listen, I want commercial. I'm a big believer in commercial. Trust me, I am. Yeah, I can live with that. Again, as long as the residential is vertically and horizontally, it could be connected horizontally or it could be connected vertically. And as long as we carve out Oviedo Boulevard and Mitchell Hammock in the...
Just that one building, whatever...
Yeah,
what's that building?
right here. Right.
Avita Boulevard, Microbutter Way.
Excuse me?
And Microbutter Way, isn't that Microbutter Way?
Yeah, it's Microbutter Way. I was going to say it's the southeast quadrant of Microbutter.
Why don't we do this? Why don't yourself, Dr. Carrera, Brian, Mr. Colbert, and Lee, we'll take a 5-minute break, hammer out some language that we could add to the motion, and then that way we can make something happen. Sound like a plan?
We'll give you 2.5 minutes.
Great.
Go draft.
I think I'm going to really take a break
Go
this time.
stretch your legs. Ready.
You guys can be in the back.
All right, rock on.
Oh, there you are.
All righty, we're going to call the meeting back to order. It's about 9:20, and I believe the applicant and city staff have gotten together and have come up with something that'll work. If the motioner and the seconder agree, I'm going to ask Mr. Cobb to read that into the motion.
Yes, sir. Linda, could you do me one favor? Would you pull up attachment 2 to the resolution? All right, I need you to, we want to go down, I think it's the 4th page. Stop right there. Okay, council, what I'm going to be reading to you will be reflective of what's on this plan. And this is your subdivision plan that's being presented before you tonight. So we've tied it to the subdivision plan. This would be condition of approval number 3. And this is what we've come up with. No residential-only buildings shall be constructed on lots B, C, and D, except for that portion of Lot B fronting on Microberto Way, approximately 280.53 feet west of Oviedo Boulevard and 80 feet south of Microberto Way. Mixed use shall mean vertical or horizontal attached land uses within a single building. Okay, and council, what that does we tied it up here to the what's on the screen using your map here. What that does is it says this area right in here that's on the south side of Microberto Way and west of Oviedo Boulevard. This would be the area that a residential only building could be constructed on either of B, C, or D.
Right, now we're not approving a residential building there, we're just leaving open the possibility.
It allows the opportunity.
Right, because they're going to come back with another bite at the apple.
It does not impact Lot A.
That's right. So the rest of it will be the mixed use as you described, except for that one little stretch of Microberto Way as we discussed.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you need to add anything else to your motion?
No, sir, that is it.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Motioner agree?
I'm good.
Seconder agree?
I do, but did the other two conditions also apply?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They are already read into the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we should confirm that with the developer that is his agreement as well.
Yep. Could just get it into the microphone so Mr. Colbert doesn't.
Mr. Smith needs to do that.
I agree to the 3 conditions read into the record with the last one just previously discussed within the last 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Is that good, Mr. Colbert?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else from council on this for the good of the order? Everybody ready to vote? All righty. I might just vote against it now. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. You're welcome. Thank you.
That wasn't so hard.
That really wasn't. See? We didn't need to take this poor young lady out tonight, even though I understand she got paid very well. All righty, moving along. Councilman Schenk, you have a discussion item on Oviedo on the Park master signage plan. Let me just turn it over to Mr. Cobb briefly. Do you have any introduction for this, or just give it to Councilman Schenk?
I would give it to Councilman
Can I ask
Schenk.
Teresa to come up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Basically, the whole idea was to pull that portion.
Dr. Correa, can you come on up? I'm sorry.
I couldn't see. I was going to. I couldn't wave over.
She's coming.
So that you can explain anything because we discussed it very briefly because it's really a brief thing. Basically, we're entering into agreement with Tom Cavanaugh about but we have a master plan, taking the portions that relate only to the city and the public right-of-ways, et cetera, removing that out, basically giving ourselves the rights to put the signs in the public right-of-way like we can give ourselves the right to, but pulling that out of that agreement, still getting into the agreement with Mr. Cavanaugh about the other stuff, but that way we can move ahead quickly and get that moving. Because this has been, as Tom said, lingering for a while, and I see 2 events that we've had that we could have had signage for, and just allowing ourselves to have the signage that we're allowed to have through code versus in an agreement. The other thing is if we ever need to amend it for whatever reason, we don't have to enter into the agreement where as these parcels split up, possibly multiple people, et cetera, it just allows us. But again, on the private properties part of this, we will still get into the same agreement that we have to get into with Tom and Pack Development to lay that out, but we're just going to remove ourselves for the right-of-ways and all those. Did I describe it well?
Yes, that's what we
And
discussed.
But you want to make it, you want to incorporate that into the land
I
development
want
code.
to incorporate that into the land development code versus the agreement. Change that into the land development code so that, like we would normally do other places and everywhere else.
Have we come to finalize the plan that we have with Mr. Cavanaugh? So it would be a cut
That's a
and
whole
paste back
different-
into this, to the land development code?
Well, we're not. That's not going to be part of land development code. That's an agreement with private property.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same thing, right?
No. There's basically 2 different parts. I mean, they relate, but we're talking about just our part of that. That only relates to the.
Yeah, but we had these long discussions on uniform standards and.
It's going to
all that.
keep those same standards and everything we've done in the master plan, except it takes it out and allows us to do this in a standard way that we do it, so that we can do it over the next, what does it take, 90 days in terms of a land development code change? About 90 days it can be done somewhat versus going longer.
But I am envisioning some sort of cut and paste type operation so that we don't get up there and put blue signs up and he's required to put green
No,
signs
it's
up.
going to be the same, again, it's taking that, adopting that same exact thing.
Okay, so it should be easy.
That's,
Let me ask another question. Since we've approved this evening, when are we going to approve the master sign package, and then this is all moot? Because I understand what Councilman Schenk is trying to get to. He wants Drew to be able to start using the banners, using the poles, using this, using that.
We have already revised the master plan twice. We don't have any more comments. Now I think it's in the phase that it's with the attorneys. I think Mr. Smith and Mr. Groot are working with the development agreement. So we will review it, but we are not the ones
So that
writing the
plan package we haven't
development
even approved
agreement.
yet?
No.
I thought we've had all these meetings forever.
Well,
ago
we have
and
approved the concept,
came
right?
to a consensus.
That's what I want to do.
But
That's
we
what I said. Exactly. Just, we can pull our parts out, get our part done, and then no offense, then we work, as they keep working with the agreement with Tom and get that done on private property, we could just take the wonderful plan that was made, and I appreciate it, it looks beautiful, take those signs and start being able to utilize them or give Drew the ability to utilize them ourselves.
Okay, you have my consensus.
Sure, come on up, Tom. How far are you from getting this plan approved, or your plan?
Plan's approved. We need to go through the formalities of getting council in the city to approve it, but the graphics, the elevations, that's all been done. We've been beating this ball back and forth too much. My recommendation is take the plan that we have and continue moving forward, because here's the problem. Some of your city signs that we'll be approving are on private property right now.
That part's going to stay.
Okay. Some of your city signs, and I'll have to defer to Teresa, that are in that package don't meet the current existing codes. So it's nice that you can accelerate and maybe change the codes to meet the signs that Drew and his staff needs. But my package is coming immediately thereafter that's going to have to modify it again. So it seems like we're doing twice the amount of work. If we just get Lee and Lonnie to work on this quickly and get it to Brian and get it on the agendas, by the time I finish the working drawings, Chris finishes the working drawings, which staff needs from me to go out and bid this, okay, allocate the money and get it done, we're probably talking about the same amount of time. Now, if you're just talking about banners, and attention-getting devices, that's a whole different thing. You can go do that now, but if you're talking about freestanding signs...
We're not allowed to. That's the thing.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's not allowed to do any of that. He's not allowed to do the placards. He's not allowed to do the A-frames. Nothing is allowed in there. So that's my whole thing is we could have... I never saw from the beginning why we needed to ask to get into an agreement with you.
Then quickly amend your...
Except that it's a wonderful sign package. It's comprehensive. I agree, and we need that. But we've got that. So now we don't have to agree with you to give us the right to do something in our right of way.
Could I ask a question? I think I hear where everyone's going. Couldn't we give ourselves permission, because this is zoning in progress, so Drew can start using some of this to advertise the events back in the park? Mr. Kavanaugh can accelerate his efforts with staff to get the whole package here. That way we're not amending codes 2 or 3 times?
This all started because it was a conversation that we had with Mr. Kavanaugh and the need for the businesses that would be located interior to the development to have signage on Mitchell Hammock Road. And at the time, we were working with the mall on their statutory development agreement. And the thing about it is that the statutory development agreement covers the private signage and gives the ability, or will give the ability, for any place located within Oviedo on the Park to advertise on those signs that would be on Mitchell Hammock Road. With the statutory development agreement, and this is where Mr. Colbert may have to help me, but what I've learned from Mr. Groot, the statutory development agreement has to have a public benefit. So the public signs that are in the drawings that were provided with your package or what the staff was considering the public benefit of the statutory development agreement. I understand what Mr. Shank is talking about, that if we needed to change, we would have to change the agreement. And that limits the city's ability to make change to the signs that would be placed for the city events. And so I understand where he's coming from, that it would be on the city side, it would be better to do a land development code amendment because that gives us the flexibility regarding what we would do, even though we would use these drawings as the standards. But that was where it all started, was that the statutory development agreement had to have a public benefit. And so we had the public benefit put in there. That's what we did. If you remember back with the mall sign, there is a portion of the sign that was given to the city. And that was the public benefit.
Right,
so
but
that's where we are.
Let's shorten the whole thing up here. I think what I'm hearing is that we would like, and however you all work it out, that's up to you guys. But I think what I heard, and I haven't gotten council consensus yet, but I'm just trying to wrap it up, is we want to accelerate our ability to advertise our events, however you do it within that package amongst all of you, and just bring us something in the next meeting, the meeting after, in order to make that happen, or 3 meetings, I don't care how long it takes, but let's get something going down there so that we're not hindered by waiting for Mr. Kavanaugh, and Mr. Kavanaugh is not rushing in order to accommodate us.
I'm ready to go. You won't rush me.
Okay.
I like your idea of just calling it zoning in progress. We've done that once or twice before, and let them do it.
Right.
I mean,
maybe you can do that.
We
just make it simple.
We can have this
It's
done.
not unless we change the code.
Right.
That's just the development agreement.
Right.
So you're saying we need to change the code.
That's the thing, Mayor. The statutory development agreement is not zoning in progress.
Okay. All righty. Well, does council agree just to accelerate this so we can use?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does council care how staff does it?
No. Is it easier to, you just mentioned it's easier to change later on if city does it zoning wise? We need to do this zoning wise, guys. I don't care how fast. I want it all to move fast, both sides. But I also want us to have the ability in 2 years to either change it the easiest way versus not change it the easiest way.
Okay,
and I said that from the beginning.
I guess my question would be this, and I'll phrase it in 2 questions. Do you wish to have the public signs in the land development code? Yes or no?
Well, it's so late, I don't understand the difference. Explain quickly the difference, not with all due respect. Don't Brianize it. Just tell us what the difference is.
To amend the development agreement, both parties have to agree.
Okay. And if it's in the land development code?
It's a land development code amendment.
Okay. Make it however it's the easiest way to do it.
It gives you the legislative deference. Legislative deference is what it gives you.
Give us that. Give us legislative difference.
Ask something. If we decide for amending the code, then we could be taking that as a zoning progress.
Then we can do a zoning in progress and start
Because
doing
that
stuff.
would
Yes.
be-
Well, that was leading to my second question. Do you want the private signs to be addressed in the land development code?
See, that's a bigger question.
It is a big question.
That's
Yes,
a
sir.
bigger, much bigger.
And I think Mr. Groot would say that because of the public benefit, it requires a statutory development agreement.
Okay, let me
Well,
ask-
I thought that
now,
was-
Mr. Group may have some other opinions on it as well.
Okay, let's just back this all up. How long is what you're suggesting going to take? Honestly, just tell us how long.
A land development code amendment? Yeah, I think you're talking 3 to 4 months.
All right, how long is what Mr. Kavanaugh's plan that we're going to approve going to take?
About the same amount of time.
All right, just get his plan done. Get it to us in 3 months, not 4 months.
Do it the right way. Listen, we've spent 3 months, we rushed, no offense. It's going back and forth. You can say, you're waiting on him, he's going to tell you, you've been indifferent. We've both been sitting in this place for an hour and a half talking, trying to get to an agreement. That this agreement for signs has been going on for a long time. 3 to 4 months, I said we do it the right way, which is give us the deference, the legal deference, to be able to do it ourselves and make changes that we need to do, put it zoning in progress. You're changing the whole thing up when you say, do we put the private in there? That, to me, is a whole nother, you're throwing another whole wrinkle. Do we do it privately? And Lonnie has a different opinion now. That's a whole nother, I didn't sign up for that part of the discussion. My discussion was totally us.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking.
To me, it was our part, getting our stuff done easily, and not in any way affect, keep moving as fast as possible on Tom's, but I also want ours, if we can pull it out and give us the legal difference later on to make changes and keep moving at the same speed, I'm all for doing it that way and giving us the easy and the ability to change later on. No.
Just make it for a video on far. Hey, what they've done, it was get the documents back, get everything coordinated, so it should be fairly quick, but with the legal documents, you gotta get it.
Yeah, it's going to take a
All right, guys, just however you get it done the quickest, you all figure it out. And just come to us at the next meeting and say, this is the best way to do it.
some ideas on it. Make an ordinance, I agree with him.
Yeah, that's the thing. It takes an ordinance either way, Mayor.
Okay, you all sit down and figure it out. Councilman Schenk is very in tune with this. Sit with him. Whatever the three of you decide, I could look at the council right now. I don't even have to look at him. We're going to speak for him. You all figure it out. Does that sound about right, Deputy Mayor? Council?
Gotta hate signs.
Okay.
Well,
we know your.
I've got an idea.
We know your love for signs.
When they're big and flashy, that's about it.
All right. There we go. Does that take care of that? Can I move along now?
Yep.
All right.
Yes,
What are we
please.
up to? Mr. Cobb, your report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Take care,
Tom, no report, Brian, is really what we're looking for.
Sorry, Mayor, I've got two things. I got to go quick.
All righty.
I just want to remind everyone, Tri-County League of Cities meeting October the 15th at the Cultural Center. If you plan to attend, if you could let me know, I'd appreciate it. Also, we have been placed on a standby list to assist with disaster deployment in South Carolina. If we do get bumped up onto the active list, we will need to bring a resolution to you. But I wanted to inform you tonight that we are on the standby list to allocate emergency resources to South Carolina if asked. So,
What type of emergency resources?
Probably just fire. Probably fire department.
Well, since you brought that up, I'll share. My brother-in-law's house is one of those houses you all see underwater up there in Sumter.
They
send them down here for us. We can send them up there.
Yeah, I was on the phone with family all weekend, so...
Thank goodness, those houses are built on hills, so it's his garage and his rec room are underwater, and then it's the house is up.
Right.
So just the crawl space is underwater, not the actual house. It came right up to the edge.
But anyway, I just wanted to inform you that we have been placed on the standby list, and if we're asked by FEMA, there is the possibility we could be placed on
Like
the active
Councilman
list.
Britton said, they help us, we help them. Anything else?
That's it, Mayor. Thank
Mr.
you.
Colbert, what do you got for us?
Nothing else this evening. Thank you.
Do I even have to ask Councilmember Henkin?
Nothing this evening,
All
sir.
right. Deputy Mayor,
Nothing.
let's keep it rolling. Councilman Britton, I do not want to hear about right-of-way infringement things.
All right, you guys know about utility relocation.
Oh, God,
I sent it to you. Here's the article.
Thank you.
All right, Calno Wednesday night, Bikes for Kids Friday.
What's that, Bikes for Kids?
Bike for Kids golf tournament.
Is it?
Al,
Rotary?
yeah, Al, what's his name?
Franks?
Franks.
Al Franks' tournament is Friday. I'm going to try to play that, but I don't know if I
Is
can.
that Twin Rivers?
Yep,
If you play, call me. I might have Friday off, actually.
that's it.
All right, I have no report. Shankster.
Nothing.
Oh, I don't like that.
No fool.
Future meeting dates,
everything I could
only to
tonight.
make it official. We've got Monday, October 19th, regular session. Monday, October 26th, we have Councilman Britton and Councilman Henkin are going to love this one, an LDC work session.
Well, I think I have.
Monday, November
I
2nd,
have a
6:30 p.m. regular session. November 16th, regular session. December 7th, regular session. Anything else for the good of the order?
Brian, will you send my email about the utility thing to Chris Carmody so they're aware of it?
Yes, sir.
That's important to me. I think it should be important to all of us.
Anything else from anybody?
Nope.
Meeting adjourned.